From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. Treat everyone equally. I can't stand it. Are you guys showing off your affection so blatantly? Lin Zhuangxuan shouted from behind. Qiao Yushan blushed a little, but still snorted and said, I envy you. So find a boyfriend as soon as possible. I despise your behavior of irritating single dogs. Lin Zhuangxuan snorted, but pinched Su Weifeng's waist. Su Weifeng couldn't help but wonder, and turned around to see Lin Zhuangxuan's sour look. Are you jealous? Su Weifeng couldn't help but think of this. What are you looking at? The pot is smoking. Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng again, then turned around. Su Weifeng turned around quickly, holding Qiao Yushan's wrist, while putting the vegetables into the oil pan, saying, don't be afraid when putting the vegetables in. The more afraid you are, the farther away you are. When the vegetables are put into the pan, the easier it is for the oil to splash out, and the easier it is for you to get hurt. Oh, I'm just a little nervous. Qiao Yushan whispered. It's always like this the first time. After a few times, you won't be afraid anymore. Su Weifeng held her hand again, and the spoon in Qiao Yushan's hand gently stirred the food in the pot. Yeah. Qiao Yushan nodded repeatedly, exerted force on her wrist, and began to really cook. Su Weifeng also stepped back at this time and said, you should be able to do it yourself now. Thank you. Qiao Yushan immediately expressed her gratitude politely. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said with contempt, hypocrisy, you two are still thanking me. Qiao Yushan then felt that she was too polite just now, and said, I'm just being polite. So I said you are hypocritical. As for your boyfriend, you have to do whatever you want him to do. Qiao Yushan turned her head to glance at Lin Zhuangxuan, then immediately stared at the pot and said, I think what you said is wrong. Whether it is a couple or a husband and wife, mutual respect is a must. Only caring about your own feelings and letting the other party be infinitely tolerant and dedicated, such a relationship is difficult to last long. Oh my, you've only been dating your boyfriend for a few days, and you still have such feelings. You stinky girl, if you keep saying such bad things, don't eat here. Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin and said, you want to drive me away and live in your own world of two, but I won't. I will live in your house every day in the future and never let you get what you want. You are just willful. Qiao Yushan shook her head and didn't take it seriously. Although her cousin was about the same age as her, she still doted on her. Su Weifeng also knew that the two of them often quarreled, and this was nothing at all. When Qiao Yushan cooked 2 dishes, Lin Zhuangxuan was eager to try and said, let me do it, let me do it, I want to try to cook one too. Qiao Yushan had just gained some experience and was in high spirits, but she still gave up her position to Lin Zhuangxuan and said, okay, I'll give this to you. Lin Zhuangxuan stood in front of the stove and said, I'm definitely better than you, and Weifeng has to protect you. As she said that, she lit the fire and added oil, but when she was holding the dishes, she felt guilty and turned her head to look at Su Weifeng and said, Weifeng, I'm scared. Qiao Yushan rolled her eyes at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, it sounds like that, but it will be the same in the future. Help her quickly. Su Weifeng agreed and hurried behind Lin Zhuangxuan, but he was careful at this time. He couldn't hug her directly, like he did when protecting Qiao Yushan. He just stood behind her, keeping a distance between them, holding Lin Zhuangxuan's wrist. Okay, now slowly pour the vegetables into the pot. Su Weifeng said softly in Lin Zhuangxuan's ear. Lin Zhuangxuan quickly poured the vegetables into the pot, but it was obvious that she was a little anxious, and there was still some water in the vegetables, so the pot suddenly made a harsh sound. Lin Zhuangxuan screamed in fear and hid directly in Su Weifeng's arms. Her face turned around and pressed against Su Weifeng's face. Su Weifeng quickly comforted her and said, it's okay, there is water in the vegetables, so it will be like this, but the vegetables directly cover the oil, and the oil can't splash out. Qiao Yushan chuckled at the side and said, you scared me just now, but now you are not as good as me. She didn't think it was a big deal for Lin Xuanxun and Su Weifeng to be so close. After all, she could understand the terrible feeling just now. This made Su Weifeng quite enjoyable. He just hugged Qiao Yushan, and in a blink of an eye, he hugged Lin Xuanxun again, and it was all under each other's noses. If he said it was not exciting, it would be a lie. He was really reluctant to let go of Lin Xuanxun, and Lin Xuanxun didn't seem to avoid his consciousness, and even said provocatively, "Weifeng, don't leave. If you leave, I won't dare to do it." Well, although Su Weifeng knew that this was not good, his instinctive reaction still made him enjoy this kind of fun. Finally, the dish was done, and Lin Xuanxun immediately became proud and said, "Look, this is what I cooked. I can cook now." Su Weifeng then let go of Lin Xuanxun tactfully. Lin Xuanxun and Qiao Yushan acted as if nothing had happened. Qiao Yushan even took a bite of Lin Xuanxun's dish and tasted it, saying, "It's okay." Lin Xuanxun was immediately unhappy and said, "What do you mean it's okay? I will definitely cook better than you." "Really? Haha." Qiao Yushan just chuckled. But this stimulated Lin Xuanxun, and he said, "Wait, I'll make another one. The second one will definitely be better than the first one. Weifeng, come here." The latter sentence was said very naturally and domineeringly. Su Weifeng simply pretended to be confused, came over and half hugged Lin Xuanxun, and helped her cook a dish. Just 2 dishes for each person, neither biased nor partial, and the bowl of water was held very evenly. After the 4 dishes were ready and the rice was cooked, the 3 of them sat down at the table. Lin Xuanxun blinked at Su Weifeng and said, "Comrade Su Weifeng, now I need you to be a fair judge, and see who of us cooks better." Qiao Yushan smiled and said, "Okay, just speak according to your conscience. Even if you say that my cooking is not delicious, I won't mind." It's as if I'm narrow-minded, and forced Weifeng to say that my cooking is delicious. Lin Xuanxun pouted, and directly picked up a chopstick of her own dish for Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng didn't feel any psychological pressure to be the referee for the two. This was not the tit-for-tat between Lin Xuanxun and Xu Lingling, but just a play between 2 sisters. After tasting 4 dishes, Su Weifeng smacked his lips, and said slowly in the expectant eyes of the 2 people, "The first dishes of both of you were a little bit bad. One was too salty and the other was too bland, but the second dishes were quite improved and tasted good. You are both teachable." Teachable. PFFT. The 2 laughed at the same time. "You are such a muddy guy." Chapter 177. It's not for you. To be honest, these 4 dishes were really ordinary, and they were not delicious at all. But this was the first time for Qiao Yushan and Lin Xuanxun to cook, and being able to cook the dishes was a great satisfaction, so they all tasted very fragrant. As for Su Weifeng, he enjoyed cooking very much. At this time, there were 2 women accompanying him during the meal, and they even picked up dishes for him from time to time. This was not only a feast for the eyes, but also a kind of luck. This action of using chopsticks to pick up food for others directly seemed very casual and normal, but if there was no real close relationship, women would really not do it. Qiao Yushan's behavior should be normal in Lin Xuanxun's eyes, but Qiao Yushan's own actions did not seem to be awkward. Normally, Qiao Yushan should think that Lin Xuanxun's behavior was inappropriate, but she didn't take it seriously. I really don't know if she ignored this problem or pretended to be confused. The 4 dishes were eaten up, and then Qiao Yushan and Lin Xuanxun threw all the cleaning of the table to Su Weifeng. The 2 sisters had the same attitude on this point. After all, this kind of thing can be done directly at Su Weifeng's house, and there is no need to practice at ordinary times. I feel that my cooking skills need to be improved. Sister, I'm serious. I'll stay at your place these days. Let's learn to cook. What do you think? Qiao Yushan smiled and said, "Of course, but then you have to let your brother-in-law sleep on the sofa." Haha, Weifeng, you don't mind, do you? Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Of course, no problem." He muttered in his heart, "Otherwise I will sleep on the sofa too." Qiao Yushan suddenly said, "You girl, you are really becoming more and more disrespectful now, and you don't even call me brother-in-law." Su Weifeng's heart was shocked. This title seems to be no problem, but if you take it seriously, it is definitely not a trivial matter. Calling by name directly instead of identity proves that the relationship is relatively close. Lin Zhuangxuan was very calm at this time and rolled his eyes at Qiao Yushan, saying, "You conscienceless guy, I'm not doing this for you." For me? Qiao Yushan was a little confused. Su Weifeng also didn't understand it at once. Lin Zhuangxuan lay back, leaning on the armrest of the sofa, and said, "Do I have to pretend to be you and go to Weifeng's house? If I go to his house and call him brother-in-law in front of his aunt, wouldn't it be exposed? Do you know how awkward it is for me to change because of this title? Not only are you not grateful to me, but you also say that I'm disrespectful. I have never seen anyone as heartless as you. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Qiao Yushan's face was full of apologies, and she said, "I really overlooked this matter. When something happens, it has to be my sister. No one else can do it. It's good that you know." Lin Zhuangxuan proudly lay flat on the sofa and threw her legs on Qiao Yushan's legs. Qiao Yushan chuckled, pressed Lin Zhuangxuan's calf with both hands, and said, "Thank you for your hard work. I'll serve you. That's better." After a short rest, Qiao Yushan said, "I still have some things to deal with, so I'll go in first. You do your thing, Weifeng. I'll show you the short video I took." "Short video?" Qiao Yushan stopped. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes and said, "What are you thinking about? I took it in my company. Do you want to see it too?" Qiao Yushan chuckled and said, "I'm not interested in it. You guys can watch it." After that, she went straight into the bedroom and closed the door. Lin Zhuangxuan called Su Weifeng and said, "Come, let's watch it together." Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan's posture and said, "How can I watch it?" Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled, sat up, and said, "I'll make room for you." Su Weifeng sat next to Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan took out his mobile phone, opened the video websites app, and the two of them started watching. This is their job, watching and commenting, and laughing from time to time when they see something interesting. Qiao Yushan was in the bedroom, feeling that it was really noisy, so she simply found headphones and played music, so that she wouldn't have to hear the voices of the two people outside. "Lend me your shoulder." Lin Zhuangxuan didn't care whether Su Weifeng agreed or not, and moved her legs directly to the sofa, turned around, and leaned her back on Su Weifeng's shoulder. It was obviously more comfortable to lean halfway like this. "Hey, this is at your sister's house. It's not good for your sister to see it," Su Weifeng hurriedly reminded in a low voice. Lin Zhuangxuan said carelessly, "It's okay, I'm just getting used to pretending to be your girlfriend. I don't care, so why should she care? You." Su Weifeng was a little speechless, but he felt that Lin Zhuangxuan's reason was not wrong. After a while, Lin Zhuangxuan stopped making any sound. Her phone slipped to the side, and then her body slipped and actually rested on Su Weifeng's legs. Su Weifeng looked down and saw that the girl was actually asleep. Looking at Lin Zhuangxuan's somewhat tired face, Su Weifeng suddenly felt distressed. This girl was originally carefree. She was more interested in running a video company for fun. He had raised investment for her and forced her to work hard. It seemed that he was harming her. Reaching out and pressing on Lin Zhuangxuan's forehead, Su Weifeng gently massaged her. Lin Zhuangxuan's eyebrows gradually stretched out, and her breathing became more even. The bedroom door opened, and Qiao Yushan came out. Seeing the posture of the two, she paused and frowned. "Hush!" Su Weifeng signaled to Qiao Yushan. Qiao Yushan immediately understood the situation, and then walked over quietly. Her eyes swept across Lin Zhuangxuan's face, and lowered her voice and said, "When did you sleep?" "I slept for a while," Su Weifeng answered in a low voice. Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, "Why is she like a child, falling asleep as soon as she was told to? I think she must be tired." "Tired? Did she have too much fun?" Qiao Yushan shook her head again, but did not wake up Lin Zhuangxuan. She said to Su Weifeng, "Then take her to the bedroom." "Yes." Su Weifeng agreed, and then carefully picked up Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan hummed like a kitten, and put her arms around Su Weifeng's neck. Qiao Yushan took a look and said nothing. She took Su Weifeng into the bedroom, and quickly made the bed. Su Weifeng then gently put Lin Zhuangxuan on the bed. When he was about to get up, his neck tightened. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't let go. "This?" Su Weifeng turned his head and looked at Qiao Yushan. Qiao Yushan shook her head again, carefully pulled Lin Zhuangxuan's arm away, and frowned slightly. Chapter 178. Who is it? After leaving Qiao Yushan's room, Qiao Yushan followed him out. Yushan. Qiao Yushan was about to go to the bathroom, but she stopped and said, "What's wrong?" Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, "I feel that Zhuangxuan is not what you imagined." "What did I imagine?" Qiao Yushan was even more confused. "I saw what she shot, and she was very attentive, and there was still some connotation. It was not nonsense. If she didn't put in some effort, it would be impossible to shoot it. She was so tired today. I think it was because of the hard work, not because she was tired from playing. Maybe she can really make some achievements in this industry in the future." If Lin Zhuangxuan said this, Qiao Yushan would not care at all, but Su Weifeng said it. It increased the credibility. "Is that so? That's a good thing. I used to think she was just fooling around. If there is any development, then I won't mock her anymore." Well, after all, this is still an emerging industry, and not understood by many people. Qiao Yushan snorted and said, "Are you trying to say that I'm conservative?" "Ahem, that's not what I mean. I'm not conservative. I'm just targeting Zhuangxuan's attitude towards work. She used to take everything lightly, so I thought she couldn't accomplish anything. If she gets serious, no matter what industry she's in, I'll support her." "Yeah, then I'm relieved." Qiao Yushan suddenly said, "I feel like you know Zhuangxuan better than I do." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "She has pretended to be you several times, and we are pretty good friends. I'm also very interested in her company, and I'm considering whether to invest some money in her company." This time Qiao Yushan was a little surprised and said, "Are you so optimistic? Emerging industries are often good opportunities. Anyway, I have money in my hand, so what if I succeed in investing?" Qiao Yushan thought about it and said seriously, "You'd better examine this carefully. I'm afraid that Zhuangxuan will be enthusiastic for 3 minutes and go out to play like before in 2 days, and your money will be wasted." "Well, I will seriously consider it." Su Weifeng did this to pave the way for the future. Otherwise, if Qiao Yushan knew that he and Lin Zhuangxuan were running a company together, she would feel that it was a kind of deception to her, and she would not be able to explain it later. After packing up, Qiao Yushan returned to the room, and Su Weifeng lay on the sofa again. "Alas, I have money and a family. I don't want to live in a high-end hotel, but I shouldn't have to live on the sofa." In the middle of the night, the sound of the water dispenser filling water woke Su Weifeng up, and Su Weifeng also got up. The dishes tonight were actually average, especially 2 dishes, which had too much salt. Su Weifeng was also a little thirsty. A person was standing by the water dispenser, wearing pajamas, holding a cup and drinking water. He didn't pay any attention to Su Weifeng, probably in a daze. Su Weifeng was also in a state of half asleep and half awake at this time, and said, "Yushan, give me something to drink." Qiao Yushan handed the cup in her hand to Su Weifeng, and then walked towards the bedroom, but just after taking a step, she tripped over something and fell forward. Even though Su Weifeng was in a daze, his reaction speed was super fast. He stretched out his arm, and grabbed Qiao Yushan, and then pulled her back. Qiao Yushan turned half a circle, and leaned into Su Weifeng's arms. "Your hand." Qiao Yushan whispered. "Ah, sorry." Su Weifeng found that his hand was placed in a place where it shouldn't be, and quickly took it back and quickly straightened Qiao Yushan. Qiao Yushan didn't say anything, and ran into the bedroom directly. Su Weifeng rubbed his nose. He got a lot of bargains with Qiao Yushan. He saw everything yesterday, and got it today. If he stayed for a few more days, who knows what would happen. He went back to sleep. The next morning, Su Weifeng went to buy breakfast again. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan got up. They were both wearing pajamas and stood together. They were both sleepy and their hair was a little messy. At this time, Su Weifeng couldn't tell who was who. Usually, he felt that he could tell the two apart. That was because they wore different clothes and had different personalities. As long as they talked, and they didn't meet in the same place, Su Weifeng could easily recognize them. But at this moment, Su Weifeng really couldn't tell them apart. If the two were not indistinguishable, Lin Zhuangxuan wouldn't be able to pretend to be Qiao Yushan and come to Su Weifeng's house. "Going to buy breakfast again?" The one on the left yawned and said casually, "Again? Then this must be Qiao Yushan, because Lin Zhuangxuan was not here yesterday." Su Weifeng put down his things and said, go wash up and eat something. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan both entered the bathroom, and Su Weifeng suddenly stopped. Wait, the pajamas that person wore last night, why does it look like Lin Zhuangxuan? Such a thought suddenly popped up in Su Weifeng's mind. He thought about it carefully, but he was not sure. When he first saw the person, he was still confused and didn't care. Then when he woke up, he only cared about the feeling in his hands, and didn't pay attention to what pajamas it was. It was just a vague feeling that there seemed to be something wrong. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan came out, and Lin Zhuangxuan came over and grabbed a bun and took a bite. After chewing it twice, he immediately praised, not bad, not bad, delicious, delicious. I haven't had breakfast for a long time. Just looking at this action and expression, it must be Lin Zhuangxuan. Qiao Yushan said angrily, eat steadily, the oil has leaked onto your hands. Lin Zhuangxuan stuck out his tongue and said, don't you think that eating like this is the best reward for Weifeng? Weifeng, don't you think so? Qiao Yushan said helplessly, since you said so, can he deny it? Alas, it is true that there are opposite sexes without humanity. Despise you. Lin Zhuangxuan said, biting another bite of the bun, and did not take Qiao Yushan's blame seriously. What are you looking at? Have you never seen a beautiful woman? Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly stared at Su Weifeng and asked. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, your popularity is indeed an encouragement to me. In fact, he was still studying who it was last night, but this matter, except for his own observation and research, really cannot be asked. Ask Qiao Yushan, did you come out to drink water last night? If not, then Qiao Yushan will definitely ask what happened. Otherwise why ask so? Asking Lin Zhuangxuan, that is even worse. If it is really her, then she must doubt the relationship between the two. So at this time, there was absolutely no other way, except to pretend to be confused. But after watching for a while, Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan were both normal, and no one mentioned what happened yesterday, as if that embarrassing thing had never happened last night. Chapter 179, Can't Beat Her. I'm in a good mood today. After leaving home, Qiao Yushan drove to the company directly. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan found an online taxi and went to the company together. Sitting in the car, Su Weifeng found that Lin Zhuangxuan was a little abnormal. Am I? Lin Zhuangxuan turned his head and deliberately frowned. Look at the corners of your mouth. They are always upturned. Isn't this a good mood? Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin proudly and said, I saw the data rising again this morning. How can I not be happy? Mi Xianggang was forced to help Su Weifeng because he had a handle in his hands, so he really helped to ask for a few recommended positions. Even if it is a very good video, if there is no recommended position, it will not have enough exposure, and it will be difficult to get results. Oh, so that's the case. Su Weifeng originally thought that Lin Zhuangxuan's change was because of what happened last night, which made him discover the clues. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes and said dissatisfiedly, hey, what's with that expression? Our company's performance is good. Why do you still look disappointed? Ahem. I think this is a very normal thing, not a pleasant surprise. Lin Zhuangxuan narrowed her eyes and kept looking at Su Weifeng, making Su Weifeng a little scared. She leaned close to Su Weifeng's ear and whispered, you look so sneaky. Do you have any hidden thoughts? Tell the truth quickly. Su Weifeng laughed and said, I chatted with your sister last night. What did you talk about? Lin Zhuangxuan looked alert. Su Weifeng said, it's nothing. Didn't you fall asleep while watching a video yesterday? Your sister thought you were tired from going out to play. Humph, in her mind, I can't do anything else except playing. I told her that I've been to your company several times recently, and I feel that you're doing well. I'm also very interested in your project, and I plan to invest some money in you. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, oh my god, didn't I tell you not to talk about these things? Why did you say it? Su Weifeng said, I didn't say how you are doing now. I was just laying the groundwork. Otherwise, if she knows that you and I are running a company together, she will think that the two of us are deceiving her, which is not good. Is that so? Lin Zhuangxuan touched his chin and said, it seems to make some sense, but before we have any results, there is no need to say much in front of her. I just want her to see that she shouldn't always look at me with prejudice. Su Weifeng smiled and said, in fact, I feel that you should not always treat Yushan with resistance. She doesn't look down on you. If you really work hard, she will be happy for you. TSK, I don't believe it. Lin Zhuangxuan curled her lips. When Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan arrived at the company, the door of Xu Lingling's company across the street was wide open. Xu Lingling stood at the door. She was not as sexy as usual, but wearing ordinary casual clothes. Good morning. Xu Lingling greeted with a smile. Su Weifeng subconsciously glanced at Lin Zhuangxuan, who took Su Weifeng's arm and said, good morning. Xu Lingling said, I'm starting to renovate today. There will be some noise when I move things and clean up the house. I'm sorry to bother you. Xu Lingling was so polite that Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't get angry and said, this is your territory. Just do what you should do. If it affects you, I should say hello to you first. We will be neighbors in the future. It would be bad if we hurt the relationship because of such a small matter. No. Lin Zhuangxuan threw down 2 words and took Su Weifeng's arm and went into the company. Xu Lingling watched them go into the company from behind. After Lin Zhuangxuan went in, she said angrily, this woman is really thicker than a city wall. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, just ignore her. Lin Zhuangxuan is actually a very simple girl. She gets angry when she is angry and happy when she is happy. She doesn't have any scheming. Xu Lingling looks like a rich second generation who is spoiled, but Su Weifeng can feel that this woman is quite scheming. In such a big family, people are full of competition within the family in order to obtain enough resources and benefits, so their sense of competition is cultivated since childhood. If they really fight, Lin Zhuangxuan will definitely suffer. The work of the day started again soon. Xu Lingling was really busy. There was an endless stream of people sending things in, but Xu Lingling was always busy at her own place and never came to Su Weifeng's company. After get off work in the evening, Qiao Yushan came back a little later, so Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan went to the supermarket to buy vegetables first. Originally, Lin Zhuangxuan wanted to cook all the dishes by herself, but Qiao Yushan came back before she could start. Oh my god, why are you back so early? Lin Zhuangxuan tied an apron on her chest, which was specially bought today, and looked unhappy. It's just cooking a dish, and you are grabbing it. Qiao Yushan was a little amused. Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smile, I think cooking is fun. I'm interested in it. Qiao Yushan said, then you make one first. I'll go change my clothes first. Just leave 2 for me to practice. Su Weifeng also felt a little funny. Most people don't like to cook, but these 2 are still scrambling to learn. However, he also deeply suspected that these 2 people were just enthusiastic for a short time. In a few days, they would lose interest. Su Weifeng even had such an arrogant idea in his mind that they wanted to learn cooking because they liked the feeling of him protecting them. Ahem. I'm a little proud. As soon as this idea came up, Su Weifeng immediately reminded himself. Qiao Yushan pretended to be a couple with him just to avoid trouble, and Lin Zhuangxuan was so close to him just to help Qiao Yushan. He knew the situation clearly. If he misjudged the situation, he would definitely die miserably. With yesterday's experience, Su Weifeng helped Lin Zhuangxuan or Qiao Yushan, and the 3 of them seemed extremely natural. Oh, of course, don't let others see it. If others see it, they will definitely think that Su Weifeng is hugging this one and hugging that one, and this kind of relationship is too abnormal. I have to say that the dishes cooked today are still a big improvement over yesterday. At least they are not so unpalatable. But why does Su Weifeng always feel that Lin Zhuangxuan's attitude today is a little abnormal? Why are her eyes always moving around? When he looks over, Lin Zhuangxuan pretends to be calm. Chapter 180, Midnight Figure. After dinner, the 3 of them sat on the sofa. Qiao Yushan sat next to Lin Zhuangxuan and said, Zhuangxuan, I have nothing to do today. Can you let me see the video shot by your company? Lin Zhuangxuan turned to look at Qiao Yushan and said with a doubtful look, are you sure you really want to see it? Don't be so attentive. Weifeng also told me yesterday that you are doing well now and are very serious, so I also want to know more. TSK. Let's take a look. Although Lin Zhuangxuan still looked disdainful, he still found the video for Qiao Yushan to watch. When Qiao Yushan was watching, Lin Zhuangxuan had an expression of indifference on the surface, but his eyes were always staring at Qiao Yushan's face, and it was clear that he cared about Qiao Yushan's opinion. Qiao Yushan finished watching one first. When she turned around, she was already surprised and said, "Did you really make this? Nonsense, it must be taken by me." Lin Zhuangxuan had read something from Qiao Yushan's expression, and his face couldn't help but want to smile. Qiao Yushan nodded and said, "What Wei Feng said is right. It is indeed okay. It is not the kind of film that only relies on its looks to attract people. It has a real story core. The actors' acting skills are not that good, but at least it is not embarrassing. Are you praising or insulting me?" Lin Zhuangxuan pouted, and a smile appeared on her face. Qiao Yushan's words were rare compliments to Lin Zhuangxuan. "Of course I'm praising you." Qiao Yushan smiled slightly, and then watched the next video. Lin Zhuangxuan stopped pretending to be cool, and came over to say, "I've shot 4 videos recently. The one you just watched was the first one. Take a look at this one to see if it's better than the last one. Almost the same, no obvious improvement. Then take a look at this one." Qiao Yushan finished watching all of them and said, "Basically, they're all the same, but I was really surprised that you could shoot like this." Lin Zhuangxuan pouted, obviously not satisfied with Qiao Yushan's compliment, and said, "HMPH, then you wait. Sooner or later I will shoot a video that will surprise you." Qiao Yushan's phone prompted that there was a video request. "It's Auntie." Qiao Yushan immediately looked at Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan jumped up quickly and said, "Don't say I'm here. If Auntie sees me, I can't pretend to be you anymore." Qiao Yushan and Su Weifeng also quickly adjusted their seats. Su Weifeng sat next to Qiao Yushan and put his arm around Qiao Yushan's shoulders. Qiao Yushan then connected the video. Lin Zhuangxuan stood aside, squinting her eyes and staring at Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan. There was a strange light in her eyes, and no one knew what she was thinking. As soon as the video was connected, Shenji and Song Yuru started chatting with Qiao Yushan. Of course, they were still talking about the decoration. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes, then carefully sat next to Su Weifeng, also listening to the decoration. More than half an hour passed before the video was disconnected. Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smile, "Should I congratulate you? You have started to decorate your new house. Are you going to get married soon? If you get married, I will be relieved and don't have to pretend to be you anymore." Qiao Yushan hurriedly said, "How can we get married so early? I have a lot of things to do during this period. You have to help me." Lin Zhuangxuan had an unhappy expression and said, "Oh, I still have to help you. I thought we were talking about marriage, so why would we have to act?" Qiao Yushan said, "It's because there may be a lot of things at home during this period. We may have to decorate it next. How can I have time to participate in these things? You will have to step in then." Lin Zhuangxuan shook his head and said, okay, I can't do anything about having a sister like you." Qiao Yushan immediately said flatteringly, "I knew Zhuangxuan was the best to me." It was getting late, and everyone started to pack up and rest. Su Weifeng was still sleeping on the sofa. It was unknown what time it was. Anyway, when Su Weifeng was sleeping soundly, Qiao Yushan's bedroom door opened again, and then someone walked out. First, she went to the bathroom, and then she slowly walked towards Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng already knew the sound of the bathroom door opening. For a master, the sensitivity to sound is incomparable to that of ordinary people. However, in Qiao Yushan's house, Su Weifeng certainly didn't need to be alert. He just knew that he was still in a daze. But before he heard the sound of Qiao Yushan closing the door, he opened his eyes and saw a figure slowly walking towards him, and the steps were very light, like a thief. This person was obviously coming for him, but what was he doing here in the middle of the night? Did he want to do something shameful? However, Su Weifeng immediately felt that this idea was ridiculous. Qiao Yushan was not his real girlfriend, so how could she do anything shameful with him? Weifeng. The man sat next to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng saw that the pajamas were exactly the ones that Qiao Yushan wore before entering the bedroom at night. So this person must be Qiao Yushan. Yushan, it's so late. What's wrong with you? Su Weifeng wanted to get up. Qiao Yushan pressed his chest and said, Weifeng, what's wrong? Su Weifeng was even more puzzled. Why did Qiao Yushan's tone have a little tremor? I miss you. Qiao Yushan said, and her body slowly leaned down. Oh my god. What's going on? Su Weifeng screamed in his heart, and his brain short-circuited for a moment. However, the more special the situation was, the calmer Su Weifeng could be. This was definitely not Qiao Yushan. Qiao Yushan's relationship with him had never reached that point, so Qiao Yushan would not do this. Then this must be Lin Zhuangxun. Why did Lin Zhuangxun do this? Could it be that she wanted to do something shameful with him secretly by pretending to be Qiao Yushan? This was actually the first thought that came to Su Weifeng's mind, but he immediately gave it up. This idea was really absurd and ridiculous. Excluding this possibility, there is only one reason. Lin Zhuangxun is suspicious of his relationship with Qiao Yushan, so this is to test the truth of the two. Absolutely, it is absolutely right. Although there are many thoughts in Su Weifeng's brain, it was only a second before and after, and he was still a little distance away from the Qiao Yushan in front of him. He knows it, but how should he deal with Lin Zhuangxun now? Su Weifeng was a little overwhelmed again. Chapter 181, discovered by Lin Zhuangxun. While Su Weifeng was thinking about a solution, Lin Zhuangxun had already leaned over him and whispered in his ear. This is definitely tempting people to commit a crime, Su Weifeng wailed in his heart. Lin Zhuangxun, this dead girl, not only has a lot of tricks, but also uses methods that are too bold. Isn't she afraid that he can't control himself and really does something? Of course, Su Weifeng still didn't dare to do that. Reaching out and wrapping his arms around Lin Zhuangxun's back, Su Weifeng's tone was also very gentle, saying, I also want to. Then let's. Lin Zhuangxun's lips were almost touching Su Weifeng's ears, and the breath exhaled from her mouth was also extremely hot. Su Weifeng really had the urge to make the best of a bad situation, but reason still made him whisper, Yushan, but Zhuangxun is here. If you make some noise and wake her up, it will be so embarrassing. Then can you bear it? Lin Zhuangxun asked again, blowing air into Su Weifeng's ears. Su Weifeng felt that, if he continued like this, he would really explode. He immediately pushed Lin Zhuangxun away and pretended to be annoyed and said, You are Zhuangxun. I'm Yushan. How can you say I'm Zhuangxun? Lin Zhuangxun still pretended to be confused. Su Weifeng sat up directly, took Lin Zhuangxun to sit aside, and said unhappily, Zhuangxun, I don't know what Yushan is like. How can she seduce me like you? But his voice was also very low. Oh my god, the details are still discovered. Lin Zhuangxun shook his head, then laughed and said, You guy, maybe my sister will be kind one day and seduce you like this once. Then why did you come here to do this? For nothing. Su Weifeng frowned, still pretending to be confused. Lin Zhuangxun said proudly, I just want to test how far you two have developed. Humph, after my test, my feeling is right. The relationship between you two is not as good as it seems. Su Weifeng said, Nonsense, we have a good relationship. Lin Zhuangxun curled her lips and said, Don't pretend. What do I do? I'm a director. When you were video chatting with your aunt just now, it was obviously like an actor acting. How could I not see it? Su Weifeng's face turned black. Sure enough, the relationship between him and Qiao Yushan was discovered by Lin Zhuangxun. Lin Zhuangxun snorted and said, Tell me if you are tired. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen. Why do you have to admit it? My sister is so conservative. It's only a matter of time. Huh. Su Weifeng was a little dazed. Why did he feel that there was a twist in the story? Maybe this has something to do with me, right? If I hadn't slept in the same bed with you at your grandmother's house that time, you could have slowly started dating. This has directly pushed your relationship forward. At least the elders think that's the case, and you can't explain it, even if you want to. Su Weifeng nodded repeatedly and said, Yeah, your sister and I had just started dating for a short time, and with her personality and lack of time, we really haven't reached this point. But I'm not talking about you. Since it's like this, just make the best of it. It's not like you haven't been in a relationship. Living together is part of a relationship. Are you still thinking of having your wedding night on the wedding day? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes, and Su Weifeng smiled awkwardly and said, not really. You saw that our relationship was actually progressing very quickly. But things like that should always be done naturally. Okay, then I don't care about you. Don't worry, I won't expose you. Just let you continue to act. I'll tire you to death. By the way, don't tell my sister about this. I just like the way she acts in front of me. I think it's very funny. Lin Zhuangxuan looked sly and proud. Su Weifeng's face darkened and said, Zhuangxuan, I don't think it's a problem if you don't let me talk about your company, but you didn't tell your sister about this. Am I a little bit at odds with her? If you tell me, I'll tell your mother and my second aunt. Lin Zhuangxuan started to threaten fiercely. Okay, I won't say it, I surrender to you. Su Weifeng looked helpless. HMPH, don't take advantage of me. If I hadn't helped you so much, could my sister develop so quickly? I can guarantee that you two will still be respectful to each other there. That's what I said. Okay, then I'll go back to sleep. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and walked into the bedroom with a triumphant step. Su Weifeng lay down again and couldn't help but laugh and cry. He just thought that Lin Zhuangxuan had completely seen through their relationship. He was really confused at that time, but Lin Zhuangxuan only found that the two were not that close and did not think that he and Qiao Yushan were not in love. This was a blessing in disguise. It was not a big problem for Lin Zhuangxuan to know about this. He and Lin Zhuangxuan had such a good relationship, and Lin Zhuangxuan would not betray her. Just pretend that nothing happened tonight and let it go. The next morning, Su Weifeng did not go out to buy breakfast. He went to the supermarket to buy some things in the past 2 days. He fried a few eggs and paired them with bread and milk. It was also a good breakfast. When it was almost done, Qiao Yushan came out of the bedroom and then closed the door casually and then came straight to Su Weifeng. This series of actions was enough to show that Qiao Yushan had something to say and she didn't want Lin Zhuangxuan to hear it. Su Weifeng whispered, what's wrong? I feel that Zhuangxuan seems to have found that our relationship is not normal. Qiao Yushan said directly, frowning slightly. Really? I haven't really noticed it. Su Weifeng could only pretend to be confused at this time. Yeah, I thought about it. There is too little interaction between us. We don't look like a couple, and Zhuangxuan is a smart girl. She can definitely see the problem from these things. Then what should we do? Su Weifeng asked. This morning, we should interact more in front of her, but not too much, too deliberate. It will make it more obvious. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, then I really don't know how to grasp this degree. Leave it to me. You should do what you should do, just like before, so that it can be natural. Su Weifeng looked at Qiao Yushan's natural expression, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry in his heart. He had been seen through a long time ago. Where did your confidence come from? Chapter 182 Zhao Qiang is in trouble. After breakfast was ready, Qiao Yushan called Lin Zhuangxuan out. Lin Zhuangxuan went to clean up briefly, and then the three of them sat at the table and started eating. The three of them lowered their heads to eat, but their eyes were secretly looking at each other. When their eyes met, the expressions on their faces seemed very natural, but also seemed indescribably strange. Qiao Yushan picked up the fried egg, took another bite, and said, Weifeng, this fried egg is a bit greasy. I can't eat it anymore. Before Qiao Yushan finished speaking, Su Weifeng's foot was kicked. It should have been kicked from the side. That was Qiao Yushan. Su Weifeng immediately understood that this was a typical show of affection, and immediately said, then give it to me. Qiao Yushan immediately picked up the half-eaten fried egg and put it on Su Weifeng's plate. Su Weifeng also ate the fried egg without hesitation. I despise those who show off their love. Lin Zhuangxuan curled his lips with disdain. Su Weifeng's toes were kicked again. Needless to say, it was Lin Zhuangxuan who kicked him. And it wasn't just one kick, but continuous kicks, and he was shaking. Su Weifeng immediately understood what Lin Zhuangxuan meant. She was laughing secretly, laughing at Qiao Yushan's pretending to show affection. During the meal, Qiao Yushan only showed affection like this, and then everything went on as normal. When everyone was about to leave, Qiao Yushan said, Weifeng, I feel a little prickly on my back. Can you see if there is anything? Su Weifeng was speechless. Qiao Yushan had also invested a lot of money. He went around behind Qiao Yushan and directly reached into Qiao Yushan's collar. After feeling around for a few times, he said, "It seems there is nothing." Qiao Yushan's face was dark. She had just signaled Su Weifeng to pretend to take a look, but who knew that this guy would actually do it? However, the arrow was on the string and had to be shot. She could only admit the loss. "Well, it seems to have fallen out, and I'm not feeling any discomfort." Qiao Yushan moved a few times to show that she was fine, and then they walked out together. After separating from Qiao Yushan, Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't help but burst into laughter, and the laughter became louder and louder, and finally she leaned on Su Weifeng's shoulders. No, I can't laugh anymore. If I laugh anymore my makeup will be ruined, and tears will flow out. Lin Zhuangxuan gently pressed the corners of his eyes with a tissue, and the smile on his face was still very strong. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, "You make me embarrassed. I feel like I'm a clown, performing poorly in front of you." Lin Zhuangxuan patted Su Weifeng's shoulder and shook his head. Then he held back his smile and said, "Okay, I won't laugh anymore. Besides, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at my sister. Her acting is really bad." When you stretched out your hand, the skin on her face was obviously stiff. I can guarantee that she didn't expect you to do that at the time. It was clearly a loss, and you took a big advantage. Tell me, do you want to take advantage of the opportunity? Su Weifeng hurriedly said, "Ahem, don't be so blunt, okay?" Puff. "It turns out that you are also a bad guy." Lin Zhuangxuan burst out laughing. There are a lot of things to do today. When Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan were done, it was already past 8 o'clock. The two returned to Qiao Yushan's house together. Qiao Yushan was a little later than them. It was so late, so there was no need to cook. Just ordered to eat and had a simple meal. Just after finishing the meal, Su Weifeng's cell phone rang. Xiao Qiang. The call was from Su Weifeng's high school classmate Hao Xiao Qiang. Hao Xiao Qiang came to the company once, and then the two of them basically chatted occasionally on WeChat. There was no contact at other times, and they had never called each other. "Brother Feng, can you give me 50,000 yuan? "Sure. Send me a location and I'll go there right away." Su Weifeng's face suddenly sank. "Thank you, Brother Feng." Hao Xiao Qiang said this, and hung up the phone. "What's wrong?" Seeing that Su Weifeng's face was not good, Qiao Yushan asked immediately. Su Weifeng said with a gloomy face, "My brother has something wrong. Yushan, lend me your car." Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said, "I'll go with you." Then he rushed into the bedroom to change clothes. Qiao Yushan hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll go with you too." Su Weifeng was anxious. When Hao Xiao Qiang spoke just now, his tone was obviously wrong. If there was no accident, and he just needed money, Hao Xiao Qiang should not have used such a tone. In addition, he hung up the phone before saying the reason. It was very likely that he was coerced. "It's better not you." Su Weifeng gritted his teeth. This made Su Weifeng think of Mi Xiangang and Kao Qingming. If they were to go to Hao Xiao Qiang for trouble because of the conflict with him, Su Weifeng would definitely give them a good beating this time. After walking around the living room twice, his eyes swept into the bedroom. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan were both changing clothes, and the door was not closed, but Su Weifeng was not in the mood to appreciate these at all. When the two came out, Su Weifeng just received the location sent by Hao Xiao Qiang. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Su Weifeng replied directly. Lin Zhuangxuan rushed to sit in the passenger seat. While Su Weifeng started the car, he said to Qiao Yushan in the back, "Fasten your seatbelt." Generally, people sitting in the back rarely wear seatbelts. Su Weifeng's reminder made Qiao Yushan a little confused, but after a little hesitation, she also fastened her seatbelt. Qiao Yushan had just fastened her seatbelt when the speed of the car suddenly increased. A huge push on her back came, and she immediately understood why Su Weifeng did this. "Weifeng, you must stay calm. We are going to solve the problem, so we must first ensure our own safety." Su Weifeng said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, nothing will happen. Just hold on, and don't hit it." In the underground garage, the speed of the car has reached 60 or 70. Lin Zhuangxuan is not only not afraid at this time, but also very excited, because she usually likes those extreme sports, so she has trained her courage very much. Picking up Su Weifeng's phone, Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't help but smacked his lips and said, "This reminder will take 20 minutes, and you have to get there within 10 minutes. That's enough." Su Weifeng had already driven the car out of the garage, and the speed soared again. Oh my god, it's exciting. Lin Zhuangxuan tightly grasped the handrail above his head with both hands, his eyes shining, and helped Su Weifeng to watch the road ahead. But Su Weifeng's speed was too fast, and Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes couldn't see it at all, let alone remind Su Weifeng. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Fight first and talk later. Even Lin Zhuangxuan, who often exercises, can't adapt to such a high speed, and Qiao Yushan, who sits in the back, can't stand it even more. The scenery and vehicles that are quickly retreating on both sides make her even a little dizzy. At this time, she didn't scream, let alone stop Su Weifeng, but just held the handrail tightly, closed her eyes, and stayed quiet so as not to disturb Su Weifeng. 130. 150. Oh my god. 180. Lin Zhuangxuan kept looking at the mileage meter, and kept exclaiming in her heart. This is a city, and such a speed is really dangerous. But the more dangerous it is, the more excited she is, especially watching one car after another pass by. The excitement is really indescribable. After 9.5 minutes, Su Weifeng's car stopped at a small intersection. "You sit in the car," Su Weifeng said, and then jumped out of the car directly. "I'll go with you," Lin Zhuangxuan shouted, but when she opened the car door and jumped out of the car, she felt her legs go weak and almost fell. Although she was very excited just now, in fact, this was beyond her limit, and her legs and feet were weak at this time. However, she saw that there were several cars and some people in the small road that Su Weifeng rushed into. It should be where Su Weifeng was going. It would be enough for him to go there slowly. Qiao Yushan did not move at the back, and did not even open her eyes or speak. Her stomach twitched repeatedly, making her feel like vomiting at any time. Hao Qiang leaned against the door of his taxi. His head was still bleeding, his face was covered with blood, and his clothes were stained with blood. He looked very weak, but he was still standing. "Boy, I warn you, if your friend doesn't send you money, you'll be dead today." Hao Qiang coughed and said, "My friend said he would come, so he will definitely come." A man raised his hand and kicked Hao Qiang, saying, "With your poor appearance, how can anyone be willing to give money to help you?" Hao Qiang grinned, a little miserable, and said, "Although I'm not that good, I happen to have a good friend. You guys are just about right. If you make my friend angry, you'll be in big trouble." 10 minutes were about to pass, and Hao Qiang knew that Su Weifeng would be here soon, so he straightened his back. "Fuck. You're still pretending to be cool with us. I guess I didn't hit you enough." Another guy raised his hand and slapped Hao Qiang in the face. Bang. The slap was extremely crisp, and the loud sound echoed throughout the path. A figure flew out with the slap. However, Hao Qiang was still standing there, as if nothing had happened to him, and the man who flew out was clearly the one who was about to hit Hao Qiang. "Brother Feng, you're here." Hao Qiang grinned, and with the blood on his face, he looked very tragic. "Did they beat me?" Su Weifeng asked coldly. "Yes, they." Hao Qiang wanted to give a reason and explain, but Su Weifeng had already rushed out and started beating the gang directly. "Fuck, you idiot. Ouch. You want to die. Ah." Seeing Su Weifeng rushing over to fight with 6 or 7 of them, those guys thought Su Weifeng was an idiot, but before they could say anything sarcastic, a slap was already slapped, knocking all their words back into their stomachs. In less than a minute, all these people were lying on the ground. Without exception, everyone's head was broken, and blood was flowing all over their faces. They were all the same as Hao Qiang. Even though he had seen Su Weifeng's skills at the class reunion, Hao Qiang couldn't help but twitch his lips when he saw Su Weifeng take action this time. Su Weifeng then came to Hao Qiang and said with a sullen face, "What's going on?" The guys lying on the ground couldn't help but feel depressed. This guy was really fierce. He didn't ask the reason and just beat people up. Hao Qiang was very moved. Su Weifeng didn't ask the reason. He just knew that he was beaten by these people, so he let him vent his anger first. "We had a traffic accident. I said to call the police, but they didn't agree. Suddenly, they gave me a few sips of wine." When Hao Qiang said this, his face was also very aggrieved. Then he continued, "I drank alcohol, which is drunk driving. If I call the police, I will be arrested. It's so shameless." Lin Zhuangxuan's voice rang out beside him. "Sister-in-law, thank you for coming too." Hao Qiang greeted Lin Zhuangxuan embarrassedly. Lin Zhuangxuan waved his hand proudly and said, "It's okay. We are here. You don't have to be afraid of anything. These scumbags are so hateful. They just want to rob. Just beat them up." Su Weifeng asked the reason and kicked a guy next to him, saying, "You are really unethical." The guy shouted, "Brother, this is the first time we do this." "Yes, it's the first time for us. I have parents and children to take care of. I really have no choice but to do this." Su Weifeng knew that these people were old and had done this kind of bad things countless times. No matter how good they said, he would not believe them. The sirens came from far away and rushed over quickly, and then 2 police cars stopped Qiao Yushan's car at the intersection. Qiao Yushan took a break and finally recovered a little. She quickly pushed open the car door, but when she came out, her feet were still a little weak, and she could only stand firmly by holding the car door. "Are you the driver?" 4 policemen got out of 2 police cars. They saw that there was no one in the driver's seat, only Qiao Yushan. "Oh, no." Qiao Yushan shook her head. "Police. Police. We need to call the police. Someone's been beaten to death. Help. Help." With a shout, several people started to shout. The police looked over there and found something wrong, so they ran over. Qiao Yushan's face turned black, and she followed him. Could it be that Su Weifeng had beaten someone to death in a fit of impulse? She had never thought that Su Weifeng would be hurt. Even a bear was not Su Weifeng's opponent, so how could an ordinary person hurt Su Weifeng? When the 4 policemen came over, the guys who were beaten were wailing loudly on the ground, as if they could die at any time. Hao Qiang's face was ugly at this time. He was drunk now, and he was really afraid that he couldn't explain this matter clearly. Chapter 184. It's not easy to leave. Of these 4 policemen, 2 are traffic policemen and 2 are policemen from the Public Security Bureau. When Su Weifeng came over just now, the car was driving so fast that he was immediately spotted by the traffic police. Using the positioning of Skynet, they quickly found the car and rushed over. As for the policemen from the branch, they were also requested for support by the traffic police team because they felt that this matter was a bit dangerous. But when they arrived here, they saw 7 or 8 people lying on the ground, each of whose faces was covered with blood. There was also a person standing by the car with blood all over his face. Only a man and a woman were still intact here. In this kind of scene, the speeding issue should be put aside for the time being. "Police. Police." Before the policeman could ask, a guy climbed up with his head covered. "What's going on? How many people beat you up? Who is the instigator?" The police looked around, and his first reaction was that the group of people who beat people had run away. He beat them alone. The guy pointed at Su Weifeng. "He beat them alone." The 4 policemen all widened their eyes. "Yes, it's him. As soon as he got here, he smashed all our heads without knowing right or wrong. Police comrade, please arrest him quickly. We must sue him and put him in jail for life." The 4 policemen looked at Su Weifeng with great vigilance. Su Weifeng looked at the policeman calmly, then smiled at one of them and said, "We meet again." "Ah, it's you." One of the policemen shouted in surprise. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Yes, it's me. I'm really surprised to meet you again so soon." The policeman said excitedly, "I was wondering, how can one person knock down so many people? Only you can do such a thing." The other 3 policemen were a little confused. The people who were beaten, Hao Qiang and Qiao Yushan, were also confused. Only Lin Zhuangxuan knew the general situation of the matter, and at this time he also guessed who the policeman in front of him was. Let me tell you, the policeman was a policeman in the police station where Sun Yumeng lived. He only knew that Su Weifeng beat up more than a dozen people last time, but nothing happened. After he arrived at the police station, he knew that Su Weifeng was powerful and his identity was not simple, but he didn't know what his identity was. This buddy is definitely very powerful. Last time, more than 20 gangsters fought with him, and he knocked down 17 of them directly. All of them were seriously injured. And now those people are still in the hospital. And they will definitely be rebellious after they come out of the hospital. The other 3 policemen looked at Su Weifeng in a daze. One of them said, "Are you bragging?" The policeman said affirmatively, "Of course not. The last incident took less than half a month, and it was my former police station. This time, there were only a few people, and I saw that only his head was broken. This minor injury is much worse than the last time." Hearing the words of the policeman, the guys whose heads were broken turned green at this time. They thought that they were beaten like this now, and that was still a light injury. The most important thing is that he beat up the gangsters, and not only was nothing wrong, but those gangsters also had to betray him. This is enough to show how difficult it is for this person in front of him to mess with. Ahem. Police comrade, this is a misunderstanding. We all hit each other. Yes, we all hit each other. The other few people didn't lie on the ground anymore. They all got up and wanted to run away. Su Weifeng's face sank, and he said, "You want to leave like this, after you beat my friend like this?" The guys looked at each other, and then one of them said with a bitter face, "Brother, we brothers were wrong. We were blind, and offended your friend. Yes, we were blind. Please be magnanimous and let us go." Su Weifeng snorted and said, "Did you beat my brother in vain?" Several people said in their hearts, "We beat him, and you beat us like this, even more severely than him." But they didn't dare to say it at this time. They had experienced this man's skills themselves, and the police were full of admiration when they saw him, which was enough to show that they couldn't afford to offend him. We want 50,000 yuan from this big brother, so we will give him 50,000 yuan. What do you think? Su Weifeng looked at Hao Zhaoqiang. And Hao Zhaoqiang said quickly, okay. These people quickly gathered 50,000 yuan privately into an account, and then scanned Hao Zhaoqiang's code, and transferred the money directly. Su Weifeng said calmly at this time, "Police comrade, you should also understand the basic situation. This kind of intentional accident, forcing the other party to drink, and finally extorting money, what do you think we should do?" The policeman immediately said, "This involves fraud and traffic accidents, which is a bit troublesome. We need to take him back and deal with it properly." Those guys immediately shouted, "Brother, we have paid all the money, you can't do this." Su Weifeng snorted coldly and said, "You can also choose not to accompany me. I will continue to accompany you to have fun." No. Those guys all had black faces. They felt that, even if they were arrested, such a crime would only be sentenced to a few years, but if they fell into Su Weifeng's hands, I'm afraid they would be really miserable. He drank. One guy was still unconvinced and wanted to drag Hao Zhaoqiang away. A companion next to him immediately kicked him and cursed, "Stop talking nonsense, the police comrade will handle it." Now he is still talking about this. Isn't this adding charges to himself? This is simply a pig teammate. These guys followed the police obediently. Su Weifeng and the others had to go too. After all, they still needed to cooperate with the normal record. However, they had to go to the hospital to treat their wounds first. Sitting in Qiao Yushan's BMW, Hao Zhaoqiang was very reserved, fearing that his blood would rub against the car. Qiao Yushan had recovered at this time, and she drove the car. Lin Zhuangxuan sat in the co-pilot seat, and Su Weifeng and Hao Zhaoqiang sat in the back. Hao Zhaoqiang only then realized that the two people sitting in front of him were so similar that he couldn't tell who was who. He was also a thief. Su Weifeng brought 2 women who looked exactly the same. Who knew what was going on? If he said something wrong and brought trouble to Su Weifeng, it would be too stupid. Lin Zhuangxuan turned around and said, "Zhaoqiang, what's going on?" Qiao Yushan turned around and looked at Lin Zhuangxuan. There was obviously a little confusion in her eyes. She had never met this buddy of Su Weifeng before, but Lin Zhuangxuan seemed to be quite familiar with him. Chapter 185. Come on. How Xiao Qiang felt that it should be Lin Zhuangxuan who asked him this, but he still didn't dare to say anything and said, my car drove here, and then a car got on from the side, and then suddenly turned in front of me. I subconsciously turned to the side, and then hit the car next to me. Then they asked me to pay compensation. When I saw this situation, I knew that they were deliberately hitting me, so I refused to give them money. Who knew that these people would beat me up and pour wine into my mouth? I really had no choice, so I went to Brother Feng. Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, these scumbags are really too much. Lin Zhuangxuan said angrily, they are not just excessive, these people should not exist in this world. I feel that Weifeng didn't beat them lightly just now. How Xiao Qiang hurriedly said, forget it, they beat me, and they were beaten by Brother Feng, which is no less severe than me. I have vented my anger. Besides, they compensated me 50,000 yuan, and I don't have to work for the next 6 months. Soon they arrived at the hospital. How Xiao Qiang had stitches. Actually, it was not a big deal. It was just that he bled a lot and was a little weak because of the shock. Now that he was calm, it was fine. Brother Feng, are these twins? Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. How Xiao Qiang took advantage of the fact that Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan were not around and winked at Su Weifeng in a low voice. Su Weifeng said, don't talk nonsense. Do you think I'm not dying fast enough? How Xiao Qiang smiled and said, Brother Feng, what you said is wrong. This is such an enviable thing. I think you hit your head lightly. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes at How Xiao Qiang. Then what happened? How Xiao Qiang asked curiously. Su Weifeng hesitated. How Xiao Qiang was his good buddy. Normally, there was nothing wrong with telling him the truth, but How Xiao Qiang had a very good relationship with Zheng Shiking. If he knew that his side was fake, How Xiao Qiang would instinctively think that Zheng Shiking should be with him, and he might tell Zheng Shiking about it. So Su Weifeng decided not to tell him the truth. Qiao Yushan is my real girlfriend. No way, isn't Lin Zhuangxuan your girlfriend? How come it's Qiao Yushan again? How Xiao Qiang's eyes widened. Su Weifeng laughed dryly and said, Zhuangxuan was just targeting Zheng Shiking that day. Besides, Zhuangxuan and I are running a company together. Zhuangxuan goes in and out as my girlfriend, which will avoid some gossip. How Xiao Qiang frowned and looked confused. He said, oh my god, it's so complicated. But why do I feel like it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Su Weifeng glanced at Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan walking towards him and quickly coughed and said, if you don't understand, don't talk nonsense. I know. How Xiao Qiang agreed quickly. How Xiao Qiang was worried that he would be convicted of drunk driving because he drank alcohol, but those guys confessed to the police, so his drunk driving was not established. After all this, it was past midnight. Su Weifeng sent How Xiao Qiang home again, and then he went home with Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan. Zhuangxuan, Xiao Qiang seems to be very familiar with you? Qiao Yushan asked Lin Zhuangxuan as soon as she entered the house. Lin Zhuangxuan stopped and said in confusion, you don't know? Qiao Yushan frowned and said, of course I don't know. I have never been in contact with Weifeng's classmates. Oh, I only met him once, but I forgot to tell you. I just met him briefly that time, and I didn't have any contact with him later. Now that you know him, there is no need to tell you again. Su Weifeng really admired Lin Zhuangxuan's calmness. The more casual she was, the less disgusted Qiao Yushan would be. As expected, Qiao Yushan casually said, if we meet someone we haven't met before, it's always better to say hello in advance. There are so many things to do today, I'm too lazy to report to you. Let Weifeng tell you about such things in the future. Lin Zhuangxuan impatiently ran to the sofa and immediately turned on the phone, and Su Weifeng's voice came from it. This voice was when Su Weifeng was dealing with those gangsters just now. Su Weifeng said in surprise, when did you record it? Lin Zhuangxuan smiled proudly and said, of course I recorded it at that time. Qiao Yushan immediately sat over and said, let me see. She was still sitting in the car at that time and didn't see it. After watching the video, Qiao Yushan couldn't help but stare at Su Weifeng in astonishment and said after a long while, "You are too awesome." Lin Zhuangxuan said contemptuously, "You don't even know how awesome your man is? Are you still his woman?" Qiao Yushan coughed lightly and said, "Of course I know Weifeng is awesome. I knew it when he saved you from the bear that time, but I haven't seen him fight after all. This kind of thing of hitting someone is the first time I've seen him do it. Your man is so awesome, don't you have an urge to throw yourself into his arms? I'll do something good today and give you my bedroom." Qiao Yushan was about to refuse casually, but when the word came to her lips, a delicate blush appeared on her face, and she said, "Don't talk nonsense." "Hey, what do you mean I'm talking nonsense? I can't be ungrateful. Actually, I should go back to live, but it's so late, I'll just sleep on the sofa." After saying that, Lin Zhuangxuan lay down on the sofa, kicked Qiao Yushan and said, "Okay, what's the point of being pretentious? I'm sleepy and I want to sleep." Qiao Yushan snorted and said, "Don't say nice things. I can't stand your ridicule later. Does my ridicule as a single dog hurt you in any way? You have already hit me hard, okay? Go away, don't make too much noise, the sound insulation in your house is not very good." Qiao Yushan's face darkened. What does this sentence mean? The sound insulation is not good. This sounds like a reminder to the two not to make any noise, but in fact, why does she feel that if she doesn't make some noise, Lin Zhuangxuan will find the problem? After giving Su Weifeng a wink, Qiao Yushan walked directly into the bedroom. Lin Zhuangxuan blinked at Su Weifeng, then clenched his fists and opened and closed his mouth. Even if she didn't make any noise, Su Weifeng knew she was saying come on. Su Weifeng didn't know how to respond to Lin Zhuangxuan. Now he had a feeling that everything in his relationship with Qiao Yushan was planned by Lin Zhuangxuan and everything was under her control. Chapter 186 Acting. Isn't the soundproofing here really good? After closing the door, Qiao Yushan frowned and asked Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng nodded and said, "The soundproofing is indeed not very good. When you and Zhuangxuan are talking, even if I can't hear what you are saying, at least I can hear you talking. What should we do?" Qiao Yushan's face turned black. It's nothing. It's so late today. Isn't it normal for us to go to bed directly?" "Oh, that's right." Qiao Yushan just nodded, but immediately shook her head and said, "It doesn't seem right. Shanshan has been here for 2 days. When young people are together, can they do nothing for 2 days?" Su Weifeng rubbed his nose and said, "With a beauty like you, as a man, and a man with such good physical strength, I have to admit that I may not let you go every day." Qiao Yushan blushed a little because of what Su Weifeng said, but she had to admit that what Su Weifeng said was also a fact. After thinking for a while, Qiao Yushan said, "But it shouldn't be a big deal. Zhuangxuan usually sleeps a lot and goes to bed early. She fell asleep first, after lying on the bed." Su Weifeng's mouth twitched. Lin Zhuangxuan's sleep quality has not been very good recently. Su Weifeng has treated her for the past 2 days, and it has been relieved. But it will take a few days to recover. But he didn't tell Qiao Yushan, otherwise, treating Lin Zhuangxuan would be a difficult thing to explain. Ding ding. There was a knock on the door. Qiao Yushan went over and opened the door directly, saying, "What's wrong? Do you want to come back to sleep in the bed again?" Lin Zhuangxuan yawned and said, "You think too much. I just came to get pajamas." "Hey, why don't you two even change your clothes? Can't we talk first?" Qiao Yushan replied unhappily. "I'll get the pajamas and I won't disturb you." "Hey, you're sitting on my pajamas." Lin Zhuangxuan pushed Su Weifeng who was sitting on the bed. Su Weifeng stood up quickly and said, "Sorry, I didn't notice." "It's okay, good night." Lin Zhuangxuan turned her back to Qiao Yushan at this time and blinked at Su Weifeng again before walking out. Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll go take another shower. There's still blood on my body." After a simple shower, Su Weifeng changed into pajamas and came out of the bathroom. When he passed by the living room, he saw Lin Zhuangxuan lying on the bed, motionless, with his eyes closed, as if he had fallen asleep. But Su Weifeng was 100% sure that Lin Zhuangxuan must not be asleep at this time. When he entered the bedroom, Qiao Yushan had already changed her clothes and was lying on the bed. Su Weifeng came over and got on the bed and lay on the other side. This was not the first time, so neither of them felt awkward. Qiao Yushan moved a little closer to Su Weifeng at this time, handed him the phone, and then played a short video. The video showed a man and a woman doing something shameful. The volume was very low, but the movements were clearly visible. The expression on Su Weifeng's face suddenly became extremely exciting. He then turned his head and questioned Qiao Yushan with his eyes. Qiao Yushan also looked embarrassed and said, "I thought I had to make some noise, so this should be enough." Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, "This should be enough. We don't need to make such a clear sound. Just make a few sounds from time to time." "Yeah, that's enough. I'll leave it to you. I'll go check the files." Qiao Yushan breathed a sigh of relief, but her face was also red. It was really embarrassing to watch this thing with a man lying on the bed. Su Weifeng was also speechless. Qiao Yushan was shirking the blame, but as a man, he couldn't let Qiao Yushan take the blame, and he couldn't let her do things, otherwise it would be like he was plotting against Qiao Yushan. But to be honest, watching this short video, if Su Weifeng said that he had no ill intentions at this time, that would be absolutely nonsense. Qiao Yushan is not an ugly girl, she is a top beauty, even if she is usually a little cold, but after a long time together, Su Weifeng already knows that her coldness is not offensive, but thinks it is a unique temperament, and even breaking this coldness can give men a unique sense of accomplishment. This really made Su Weifeng a little overwhelmed, and he turned off the video directly. "What's wrong?" Qiao Yushan asked in confusion. Su Weifeng said softly, "We don't need this for the time being. Think about it, the two of us know that Zhuangxuan is outside. Even if we are hot and dry, we have to try not to make any noise. Zhuangxuan doesn't have as good hearing as me. She is lying on the sofa, and it is absolutely normal that she can't hear the sound inside. Is that so? That's the best." Qiao Yushan let out a long sigh. The two of them suddenly became quiet, and the atmosphere was still a little weird and ambiguous. After all, the thing that was just played, not to mention Su Weifeng, even Qiao Yushan, couldn't get rid of it in her mind. Qiao Yushan was still a little nervous now. She was very worried that Su Weifeng would not be able to restrain himself after watching that thing and then do something to her. She would definitely not agree, but when she thought of Su Weifeng's powerful force, if he wanted to do this deliberately, she was afraid that he would not even give her a chance to resist. Wouldn't she be in an extremely dangerous environment? Su Weifeng suddenly moved closer to her, and Qiao Yushan's heart suddenly rose to her throat, and her body was even more tense like a javelin. Zhuangxuan got up. Su Weifeng's voice sounded in Qiao Yushan's ears. Qiao Yushan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that he didn't want to do anything to her, and said, "What's the matter with getting up?" Su Weifeng said again, "She should be walking towards the bedroom. Then she is going to come in. Did you lock the door?" Qiao Yushan became nervous again. "It's locked," and she stopped at the door. PFFT, this girl is eavesdropping. Su Weifeng was speechless. Qiao Yushan's face was also dark. The two stared at each other, and Su Weifeng had no choice but to pick up Qiao Yushan's phone. Qiao Yushan quickly unlocked the screen and played the short video again. Then Su Weifeng aimed at the video and suddenly turned up the volume and then turned it down again, as if Qiao Yushan just couldn't help but make a sound, and then blocked her mouth. After doing this several times, Su Weifeng stopped. Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng with an inquiring look, meaning that this is it? Bang! At this moment, there was a sound of knocking on the door, followed by a chaotic sound of footsteps. Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan's faces were dark. What was going on? Chapter 187. Qiao Yushan is also a drama queen. This damn girl. Qiao Yushan actually didn't hear Lin Zhuangxuan's footsteps just now, so she was still a little skeptical about what Su Weifeng said. But now that she heard this voice, she was finally sure that what Su Weifeng said was true. Lin Zhuangxuan actually ran to the door to eavesdrop, which meant that she was eavesdropping on her and Su Weifeng being intimate, which was simply too shameless. Su Weifeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Fortunately we were prepared, otherwise we would have been exposed." Qiao Yushan's mouth twitched, and she said angrily, "I said she has always suspected our relationship." "Yeah, I felt it too, but it should be much better now." Qiao Yushan nodded and said, it should be, at least she won't have so many problems in the future. This. Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, actually. Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng in confusion and said, is there anything wrong? Su Weifeng touched his nose and said, Zhuangxuan has always suspected us. Qiao Yushan was stunned for a moment, then her face turned red, and then she bit her lip and said, I understand, let's go to bed. Su Weifeng said no more. He believed that Qiao Yushan was so smart that she would understand it immediately. That night, Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan took a long time to fall asleep. Qiao Yushan was still nervous. Anyway, reason prevailed and Su Weifeng still did nothing. The next morning, Su Weifeng felt someone grabbing his arm and woke up. When he opened his eyes, he saw Qiao Yushan's cheek close to him. Her cheek was as red as fire, and there was a kind of shyness, humiliation, and anger in her eyes. Ah, I'm sorry. Su Weifeng then realized that he was hugging Qiao Yushan too tightly and quickly turned over to avoid her. In the few times he was with Qiao Yushan, Su Weifeng was able to keep a good distance from her, but this time he actually did something that went beyond the limit. Qiao Yushan was originally very annoyed, but when she saw Su Weifeng turning over and almost falling to the ground, the annoyance in her heart suddenly disappeared. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I was a little stimulated last night, so, cough cough. Su Weifeng sat up, his face full of guilt. Forget it, I can understand. Qiao Yushan adjusted her pajamas and then sat up. You really don't blame me? Su Weifeng looked at Qiao Yushan suspiciously. Qiao Yushan said unhappily, you have suffered the loss. Even if I blame you, what's the use? This. Su Weifeng scratched his hair, as if there was no other way, except compensation for this matter. But did Qiao Yushan need any compensation? Obviously not. After taking a breath, Qiao Yushan said, I'm going out now, you cooperate with me. Got it. Su Weifeng immediately understood. The corners of Su Weifeng's mouth twitched, and it seemed that this reaction was a bit exaggerated. Lin Zhuangxuan, this girl, also woke up. She sat up all of a sudden, staring at Qiao Yushan. What are you looking at? Qiao Yushan's face was full of embarrassment, and this embarrassment was 50% real and 50% fake. Ha. It's okay, it's okay. Lin Zhuangxuan lay down again, but his eyes were secretly glancing at Qiao Yushan. Qiao Yushan walked straight to the bathroom. Her steps were very slow, and then when she entered the bathroom, her steps seemed to be a little bigger. After a low cry of ouch, she entered the bathroom holding her stomach and closed the door. Come on. Lin Zhuangxuan hooked her finger at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng came to Lin Zhuangxuan's side, and Lin Zhuangxuan blinked with a smile and said, you got what you wanted, right? Ahem. Su Weifeng coughed dryly. Lin Zhuangxuan said even more proudly, you should thank me very much. If it weren't for my help, you wouldn't know how to get to this point. Su Weifeng could only say awkwardly, yes, thank you, but I always feel bad about scheming against your sister like this. What's there to feel bad about? You're not cheating her or her money. It's just a normal relationship. Besides, you're going to get married now, and you've bought a house. Once the house is decorated, you'll have to live together. It's not just a matter of time. Su Weifeng nodded and said, now that you say that, I feel a lot more at ease. Pooh, 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 I despise you. You are taking advantage of me, and still acting ungrateful. You will make me look down on you. Su Weifeng laughed and said, okay, it's true that I'm hypocritical. What are you two talking about? Qiao Yushan came out of the bathroom, still walking cautiously. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, I told Weifeng to treat you better in this life. Qiao Yushan's face suddenly flushed red. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed even harder and said, you still want to lie to me, huh? Do you know what I do? Anyone who acts in front of me is a paper tiger and can be seen through at a glance. Qiao Yushan rolled her eyes and said, that's our business, you don't need to worry about it. But you girl, do you still have any shame? You actually eavesdropped. Aren't you going too far? I didn't. Lin Zhuangxuan denied it flatly. You're still saying no, but you banged on the door so loudly, could I not hear it? Qiao Yushan said unhappily. Oh, you mean last night? My things fell at the door of the bedroom, and when I went to pick them up, my foot slipped, and I hit the bedroom door. Damn. You are so mean. Su Weifeng had to admire Lin Zhuangxuan's response. She made something that obviously didn't make sense so reasonable. Qiao Yushan obviously couldn't win the argument with Lin Zhuangxuan, and she knew that this girl was just quibbling there, but she had no way to deal with this girl. She was so angry that she drove her away, glared at Lin Zhuangxuan, and said, "Don't stay here tonight. This is annoying." Chapter 188, Getting Carried Away with Success. Su Weifeng drove Qiao Yushan to work for the first time, while Lin Zhuangxuan went to the company by herself. This girl is such a headache. Qiao Yushan sat in the passenger seat and rubbed her forehead. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Okay, let's put on a show and make her stop paying attention to our relationship. Although it's a bit difficult, it's worth it." Qiao Yushan nodded and said, "That's true. I guess she won't be interested in our relationship anymore. By the way," Qiao Yushan said, "I have to go to the company headquarters tonight." Su Weifeng asked casually, "How long will it take?" "It should be a few days. The CEOs of all the branches of the company have to go there. I don't know what they are doing." Qiao Yushan's tone was a little dissatisfied. As the company grows, there will be more things to do. Alas, I guess there won't be any good things. Every time the head office holds a meeting, they either assign you some messy tasks or set up some messy systems for you. There has never been a time when they can come up with something that can help the branch company develop well. Shaking her head, Qiao Yushan said again, "Forget it, let's not talk about it. My mother will definitely scold me if she knows that I'm on a business trip at this time. Let Zhuangxuan take my place in the next 2 days. Let Zhuangxuan take your place. Auntie can tell at a glance." Su Weifeng said immediately, "That's right. Forget it. Just tell them that I'm on a business trip." After sending Qiao Yushan to the company, Su Weifeng drove back to his own company. At noon, Lin Zhuangxuan came to his office with a smile. If she hadn't been busy in the morning, she would have come a long time ago. Someone is so proud of himself. Sitting on the sofa, crossing his legs, Lin Zhuangxuan teased Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng clasped his fists to Lin Zhuangxuan and said, "Zhuangxuan, I'm so grateful to you, but I feel embarrassed if I keep talking about this." Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, okay, let's not talk about it. Am I a little too proud of myself? What do you think?" Su Weifeng chuckled. You don't understand my heart. From childhood to adulthood, my sister has always been my role model. Everyone always wants me to learn from her, but I'm not as good as her in study and ability to do things. This makes me depressed, and I have to work on my own all the time. Then, she always wants to arrange what I do. I have lived in her shadow all my life." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "I understand. So this time her life is arranged by you. You feel particularly accomplished." "Yes, this sense of accomplishment is really indescribably strong." Lin Zhuangxuan narrowed his eyes with a smile. Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Did you let out all the resentment you have suffered over the years?" "Not yet." Lin Zhuangxuan shook his head repeatedly. Su Weifeng said in surprise, "Not satisfied yet?" Lin Zhuangxuan said seriously, "Of course, she doesn't know that I have set her up yet. I have to wait until she understands it one day, then I can have the greatest sense of accomplishment." Su Weifeng said worriedly, "Aren't you afraid that your sister will turn against you if she knows that all this is designed by you? The feeling of being set up by someone may not be very good." Lin Zhuangxuan said nonchalantly, "If I harm her, she may not only turn against me, but also beat me to death. But I'm doing this for her lifelong happiness. She doesn't dislike you, and I'm not harming her. You are happy together, so how could she turn against me?" Su Weifeng thought about it and said, "It seems so. Why don't you tell her now?" "Telling her now, I feel it is imperfect. I have to let her discover it slowly by herself. Suddenly one day she will understand that my happiness in this life was arranged by Zhuangxuan. Even if that day is very late, it doesn't matter. I just need to be satisfied in my heart." Su Weifeng said, "Haha, your satisfaction is really peculiar. I'll take a call first." The call was from Qiao Yushan. "My mom has something to do at work. She has to go back first. You go and see her off later." "Okay, I'll be home soon. By the way, let Zhuangxuan take over for me these few days. I'll tell her later." That's not necessary, right? I'm afraid my aunt is in a hurry to get a house. Then I can let Zhuangxuan go with her. Okay, that's it. Seeing Su Weifeng hang up the phone, Lin Zhuangxuan immediately asked anxiously, what's wrong? What's wrong? Yushan's mother is leaving soon. I have to see her off, and your sister asked you to take over for her these 2 days. Okay. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately shouted excitedly. Are you so happy? Su Weifeng was stunned. Ah. Lin Zhuangxuan blinked and said, of course I'm happy. I can go to my aunt's house and eat and drink for free. I haven't eaten the food cooked by my aunt for many days. I'm dying of greed. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, you little greedy cat. Go and send my second aunt off. Lin Zhuangxuan urged. I haven't had lunch yet. What are you eating? You're a grown man. You won't starve to death if you skip a meal. Su Weifeng was pushed out by Lin Zhuangxuan, which made Su Weifeng's face dark. Why did this girl seem so anxious? When they returned home, Song Yuru had already packed her things, and Shenji and Su Weifeng sent her off together. Song Yuru said, Weifeng, your mother and I have almost decided on the decoration of the house. If you have no objections, we can directly find a decoration company to do the decoration. Su Weifeng said, it's fine as long as you decide. Yushan and I just have those few requirements. It's already done very well. Song Yuru chuckled and said, you two are really good at being hands off. If I were here, your mother would be more relaxed. Now that I'm going back, you'll have to worry more, Sister Shen. Shenji smiled and said, what's the worry? For the sake of the young couple, I'm happy no matter how hard I work. I can't wait to decorate the house as soon as possible. Let them move in, get married and have children. Song Yuru chuckled and said, yes, if we have children, I guess I will retire, and then the two of us will take care of our grandchildren every day. Shenji said, that would be the best, but one is a little too few. I think it would be best to have 2 more. Song Yuru said, we don't have the final say in this matter. I'm afraid they won't even want to give birth to the first one for us. Su Weifeng's face turned black. The house had just been bought, and the 2 old people had already started to discuss taking care of their grandchildren. Chapter 189 I have a request. Su Weifeng sent Song Yuru to the car. On the way back, Shenji said, let's ask Yushan to come back for dinner tonight. Okay, we'll go back tonight. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile. Lin Zhuangxuan and his mother really got along well, and thought of the same thing. Shenji said, by the way, if you can come back earlier, let's go to the new house to take a look. In case there are any other ideas, it's just in time to change it now. Su Weifeng said, then I'll ask her. If she's free, let's go now. Shenji immediately said, then you drive first, I'll ask Shanshan. Shenji sent a WeChat message directly. After chatting for a few words, Shenji said, okay, let's go now. Yushan can take a car by herself. Su Weifeng and his mother arrived at the new house first, and within a few minutes, Lin Zhuangxuan rushed over. Su Weifeng was afraid that she couldn't find it, so he went downstairs to pick her up. Shenji would not doubt this. It's normal to pick up a girlfriend. Aren't you busy today? Su Weifeng asked doubtfully. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, no matter how busy I am, I will come immediately if my future mother-in-law calls me. Su Weifeng smiled and said, not bad, not bad. It is definitely a blessing for the mother-in-law to have such a well-behaved daughter-in-law like you. That's right. Lin Zhuangxuan directly took Su Weifeng's arm and went into the villa with him. When she saw Shenji, Lin Zhuangxuan went over and took Shenji's arm directly, and she was so sweet. Shenji was also very happy and secretly gave Su Weifeng a thumbs up. Su Weifeng smiled secretly. His mother obviously thought that Lin Zhuangxuan's attitude was so good because he and Qiao Yushan were getting along well. Auntie, can I make another small request? After walking upstairs and downstairs, Lin Zhuangxuan coquettishly shook Shenji's arm. Shenji smiled and said, this is where you live. I set it up for you. If you have any ideas, just say them out. Lin Zhuangxuan smiled sweetly and said, I know that auntie is the best. Can we have an audiovisual room here? Audiovisual room? What is this? Shenji was a little confused. It's just for watching movies, like a small movie theater. It will be very lively when watching movies. Oh, this is quite high-end. I don't understand it at all. Lin Zhuangxuan said, tell the decoration company about this. They will understand, but they have to plan a separate room, which will break the aunt's plan. Shenji immediately said, there is nothing to break. There are so many bedrooms. Your mother and I said that these many bedrooms will be wasted when no one lives in them. If they have some use, it will be a good thing. Lin Zhuangxuan's smile became sweeter and said, then I'll trouble you, aunt. Shenji patted Lin Zhuangxuan's hand and said, haha, look at what you said. This family is talking about different things. If such a good house is decorated, they will not like it, and they will feel uncomfortable. Su Weifeng looked at the harmony between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and his mouth twitched secretly. Sometimes he couldn't tell whether it was true or false. Someone called Shenji, and Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan went upstairs to choose a room, to be the audiovisual room. Arriving at a north bedroom, Lin Zhuangxuan said, I feel good about this room. If it's used as a bedroom, it's in the shade, which is not very good. As an audiovisual room, it needs a quiet environment, which I feel is quite good. Su Weifeng smiled and said, you are really good at making arrangements. I was thinking of getting you a special room. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes and said, I don't like what you said. Aren't you also in this line of work? You need it too. Besides, can't you and my sister be a little romantic when we have nothing to do? Don't you think it would be romantic to drink some red wine and watch a movie here? Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, but why do I feel that it will be you who will move into this room in the future? Can you not be so hypocritical? Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, even if this is your home, I'm your sister. It's okay for me to be a guest here when the time comes. Besides, you have so many rooms, it would be a waste if they were just left there. I'm making use of your waste. A house that costs nearly 20,000 yuan per square meter. You say it's a waste utilization. Su Weifeng was very upset. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed proudly and said, haha, for a rich man like you, 20,000 or 30,000 yuan, even 200,000 or 300,000 yuan, is still a piece of cake. The two ran to the rooftop terrace again, and Lin Zhuangxuan said, I like this the most. Later, we will plant some flowers and grass here, and raise some small fish and shrimps. It will be absolutely beautiful. Su Weifeng smiled and said, this should have been arranged. I know, but when the time comes, we will buy what to raise ourselves. Su Weifeng laughed and said, look at you, your foxtail is exposed, you want to settle down here. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed and said, don't be so stingy, there are so many rooms, I won't disturb your world of two people. Su Weifeng nodded and said, okay, then you can come and live here, it will be more lively with more people. Although this house was bought for his parents, at present, Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan will definitely live in it. As for the future, when he leaves, his relationship with Qiao Yushan will naturally end, and Qiao Yushan will no longer be here. After the girlfriend relationship ends, Lin Zhuangxuan will naturally not be here, and the house will be given to his parents to live in at that time. As for some of the things decorated here, they may not meet the requirements of his parents, but they can't use much, and it's enough to have enough things they like. Lin Zhuangxuan stood at the edge of the terrace, where the guardrail was only more than 1 meter high. Su Weifeng followed immediately and said, be careful. Lin Zhuangxuan grabbed the guardrail with both hands, grinned, and said, it's a good view from such a high place, but it's really a bit scary. Su Weifeng casually hugged Lin Zhuangxuan's waist from behind. Lin Zhuangxuan leaned back without turning her head, and said, I won't be afraid this way. Oh, I want to take a picture. Titanic, you know? Su Weifeng chuckled and said, this is not the bow of the ship. It lacks some artistic conception. You can Photoshop it later. Lin Zhuangxuan turned her head and smiled at Su Weifeng, saying, come on, take the picture. I'll take the picture for you. The window next to him opened, and Shenji stuck his head out with a mobile phone in his hand. Su Weifeng's face was dark. What is my mother doing? Eavesdropping? Fortunately, she didn't say anything just now, otherwise it would be exposed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Embarrassment. Okay. Lin Zhuangxuan shouted excitedly. Then he pulled Su Weifeng and said, hurry up and pose. Su Weifeng agreed and put his arms around Lin Zhuangxuan's waist. Lin Zhuangxuan opened her arms, tilted her head back slightly, and leaned on Su Weifeng's shoulder. The breeze blew gently, and her hair was slightly lifted. Shenji pressed the shutter button repeatedly, and praised while pressing, beautiful, it's so beautiful. After taking the photo, Lin Zhuangxuan immediately ran over to get the photo, and then looked at it with Su Weifeng head to head. The two people in the photo are like the most famous photo of the Titanic, especially Lin Zhuangxuan's intoxicated expression, which shows the artistic conception of this photo. Auntie is really amazing. This is comparable to the professional photographers in our company. Shenji smiled and said, I can't do it. I just took a few photos. You two are a good match. You look good standing there. You look beautiful, no matter how you are photographed. By the way, Yushan, does your company have professional photographers? Yes, of course we have one. Lin Zhuangxuan answered casually. Su Weifeng immediately poked her. Lin Zhuangxuan understood and said, our company has an advertising department. We have to use photographers to promote some products. In addition, we also have to have photographers to take pictures for team building annual meetings. Shenji praised, big companies are different. After exchanging glances with Su Weifeng, Lin Zhuangxuan secretly stuck out her tongue and saved the photos directly. After looking at the house, Lin Zhuangxuan accompanied Shenji to the vegetable market. Su Weifeng pushed the cart behind the two of them. While Shenji was buying vegetables, he also taught Lin Zhuangxuan how to choose good vegetables. Lin Zhuangxuan listened very carefully and asked questions from time to time. The two of them chatted and whispered to each other, just like mother and daughter. Su Weifeng didn't take it seriously now. They had a good relationship, so let them get along with each other. The road will naturally be straight when it reaches the bridge, and there will always be a way when the car reaches the mountain. It is useless to worry about these things now. When cooking, Lin Zhuangxuan once again did it herself, and Shenji was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. It made her very satisfied that her son found a rich and beautiful girlfriend. Now such a capable daughter-in-law actually has the potential to be a good wife and mother. As a mother, it is indescribable happiness. After dinner, Lin Zhuangxuan and Shenji sat on the sofa and chatted, and the topic was still inseparable from the decoration. Su Weifeng wanted to slip back to the room, but Lin Zhuangxuan hugged his arm and dragged him to sit down without letting go, saying, how can you not participate in such an important matter? Su Weifeng said, we have almost finished the research. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng and said, we have to finalize it so that we can start decorating. Don't you want to move in earlier? Su Weifeng secretly groaned when being hugged by Lin Zhuangxuan. No, it should be said that he enjoyed the pain very much. The reason was that Lin Zhuangxuan was only wearing a small nightgown at this time, and it was a suspender one. Su Weifeng didn't understand why Lin Zhuangxuan was so careless now. She didn't care at all after suffering so much loss. After chatting for a while, Shenji glanced at Su Weifeng, yawned, and said, let's stop here today. I'm a little sleepy today. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. Lin Zhuangxuan was still in high spirits, but Shenji said he was sleepy, and she couldn't drag Shenji to continue chatting. So she said, then auntie, you should go to bed early. Su Weifeng also stood up immediately at this time and said, I'll go back to the bedroom first. Then he ran away. Lin Zhuangxuan sat on the sofa, a little confused. What was going on? Why did it feel like both of them were avoiding her? But this was unlikely. She didn't say anything wrong. Shenji was obviously not unhappy. After hesitating for a while, she chased to the bedroom, and Su Weifeng, who was in the bedroom, immediately turned around. Hey, something's wrong. What's wrong between you and auntie? Is there something I did wrong? Lin Zhuangxuan grabbed Su Weifeng's arm, and her eyes revealed a kind of panic. No. Su Weifeng turned around and kept his back to Lin Zhuangxuan. Then what happened to you? Lin Zhuangxuan was even more anxious and pushed Su Weifeng down on the bed. Su Weifeng lay down on the bed and said, "It's nothing. Mom just wants us to rest early, afraid that we are tired." "Tired? Are you very tired? You didn't do anything today." Lin Zhuangxuan sat next to Su Weifeng, frowning. "I'm not made of iron. I'm just tired. I'll sleep for a while." Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Weifeng and said, "No, you must be lying to me. There must be something. You must explain it to me quickly. You can't let me be confused." While talking, Lin Zhuangxuan pushed Su Weifeng, but Su Weifeng just lay there and didn't move. "Are you feeling uncomfortable? I'll go call auntie." Lin Zhuangxuan saw that Su Weifeng was still lying there and didn't move, and suddenly thought of a possibility, and suddenly panicked, and jumped off the bed and ran out. "No, don't go." Su Weifeng turned around and called Lin Zhuangxuan. "Then what's wrong with you? Are you trying to drive me crazy?" Lin Zhuangxuan puffed her cheeks, really getting angry. Su Weifeng finally said awkwardly, "You are dressed like this, and I am so close to you. I'm a little, ahem. Do you understand?" Lin Zhuangxuan's expression was first astonished, then shy, and finally she burst into laughter, looking at Su Weifeng, and said, "So that's it. I understand. I was wondering why auntie suddenly said she wanted to take a shower and go to bed. It turned out that she saw you. Of course, it's so embarrassing." Su Weifeng's face was dark. Lin Zhuangxuan threw herself on the bed, poked Su Weifeng with a giggle, and said, "You are so mean. You actually have feelings for me. Auntie, I also know that I shouldn't, but this is really a natural reaction." Judging from Lin Zhuangxuan's performance, she was not angry, so Su Weifeng was not so worried. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly patted Su Weifeng on the shoulder and said, "Classmate Su Weifeng, you're really going too far. I'll be scared if I sleep with you at night." Su Weifeng grinned and said, "It's okay, I can still control myself." I used to believe it, but now you've done that with my sister. You've tasted the sweetness. Can you still control yourself like before? I really don't dare to believe it. Chapter 191. It's better not to play this kind of game. I'm done. You guys go take a shower. Shenji knocked on the door outside. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately jumped up and opened the door, saying, "Auntie, you should go to bed early." "Yeah, I'll go to bed now. I'm very sleepy now, so I can go to bed as soon as I want," Shenji said with a smile, and then went back to the room. Lin Zhuangxuan understood a lot from Shenji's eyes, and her face turned red. Back in the room, Lin Zhuangxuan pushed Su Weifeng and said, "Hurry up and take a shower. You go first." Su Weifeng lay on the bed without moving. "Go first if I tell you to. I still have to wash clothes. Can you wash my clothes, or should I leave them for auntie to wash? Even if they are yours, I seem to have to wash them for you, right?" I can wash them myself." Su Weifeng coughed lightly. "Come on, even if you can wash, it's embarrassing for a grown man like you to wash clothes. Go ahead." Su Weifeng finally stood up, after being dragged by Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan took a look, blushed and spat, and said angrily, "Big pervert, big hooligan." Su Weifeng quickly slipped out. He must have lost face today. After taking a shower, Su Weifeng changed his clothes, and was about to wash his clothes, but the door of the bathroom was suddenly opened, and Lin Zhuangxuan walked straight in. "You." Su Weifeng was startled, turned his head, and looked at Lin Zhuangxuan, and said, "Aren't you afraid that I have no clothes now?" Lin Zhuangxuan said indifferently, "If I don't have clothes, I don't have clothes. You are a grown man. Are you afraid to see it?" Su Weifeng was choked and rolled his eyes. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, "I know you finished washing. That's why you came in. Go out quickly, leave the clothes there, and I'll wash them. Thank you for your help." Su Weifeng felt a little uncomfortable asking Lin Zhuangxuan to wash such clothes, but since Lin Zhuangxuan had already come in, it would be a bit hypocritical for him to insist. More than half an hour later, Lin Zhuangxuan returned to the bedroom, wearing a set of pajamas. These pajamas belonged to Qiao Yushan. And then, cough cough. Su Weifeng immediately didn't dare to look at it. What was Lin Zhuangxuan doing? Why didn't he even wear that? This was too careless. It was really a bit unbearable. Lin Zhuangxuan also blushed a little, and said angrily, "What are you looking at? Didn't I accidentally drop what I brought in into the basin?" I didn't do this on purpose. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, yes, I won't look. Lin Zhuangxuan came over and got on the bed directly, pulling the quilt over her body, and then said, I won't let you look, even if you want to. If you want to look, wait until Qiao Yushan comes back, and you can look enough. This is not easy to respond to, and it must not be responded to. Su Weifeng pretended not to hear it, staring at the phone, and didn't look at Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan also picked up the phone. Except for the sound coming from his hand, the two were completely in silence. Hello. It took more than 20 minutes for Lin Zhuangxuan to break the silence. Su Weifeng turned his head to look at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, what's wrong? Lin Zhuangxuan bit her lip and said, this. You won't really violate me tonight, right? Absolutely not. Su Weifeng said firmly. Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng, saying, if you can believe what men say, then even cells can climb trees. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, this is not the first time you've done this to me. You don't know what kind of person I am. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, that's different. You didn't have that kind of reaction before. Then you haven't been so close to me before. Then you blame me? Are you saying that I seduced you? Although Lin Zhuangxuan didn't glare at him, but narrowed her eyes, there was clearly an extreme danger in her eyes. Su Weifeng immediately said, I definitely didn't mean that. I just meant that the stimulation to me wasn't that great before. Look, you admit it, you could bear it when the stimulation wasn't that great before, but now that the stimulation is great, you can't bear it anymore. Su Weifeng's face darkened, and he felt that arguing with a woman was definitely asking for trouble, so he said, people's natural reaction is one thing, but whether you can restrain yourself is a manifestation of your character, right? I always believe in my self-control. Huh, it sounds good, you're so strong, and now I'm still your girlfriend. No matter what you do to me, I don't even have a chance to resist. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan in a daze. How come these words sounded like he was encouraging him to do something? No. This is definitely a conspiracy. Su Weifeng's mind turned quickly, and then he quickly made a judgment. This was definitely Lin Zhuangxuan's test of him, that is, to see if he was loyal to Qiao Yushan. Zhuangxuan. Su Weifeng's expression suddenly became serious. What's wrong? Lin Zhuangxuan was startled by Su Weifeng's expression. Tell me, leaving Yushan aside, are we good friends? Of course, why are you asking that? Don't make that expression, I'm a little scared. Lin Zhuangxuan shrank his body, burying even his mouth and nose in the quilt, leaving only his eyes and forehead exposed. Since we are good friends, we should trust each other. Do you still not believe in my feelings for your sister? Lin Zhuangxuan blinked, then leaned his head up, revealing his mouth, grinned, and said, it's over, you saw through it. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, humph, don't play around like this in the future. Too much testing means there is no trust. Are you angry? Lin Zhuangxuan poked Su Weifeng's arm. Su Weifeng said, I'm not angry, but I think it's better not to play such a game. Okay, I know I was wrong. Don't be so serious. I'm also looking for a good husband for my sister. I won't joke with you like this in the future. Let's do what we should do, and never test it. Do you want me to swear to you? Nonsense. What oath? Su Weifeng rolled his eyes. I knew you were the most generous. Lin Zhuangxuan winked at Su Weifeng mischievously. Su Weifeng shook his head. He really couldn't be serious with Lin Zhuangxuan. No matter how serious the problem was, she made such a fuss. It was no longer serious. Why are you still not satisfied? Lin Zhuangxuan pouted, and suddenly moved towards Su Weifeng. Before Su Weifeng could guess what she wanted to do, her little hand had already poked Su Weifeng's armpit. Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied? Before Su Weifeng laughed, Lin Zhuangxuan started giggling. It was unclear whether she was tickling her or Su Weifeng. Chapter 192 Overdoing it. Although Su Weifeng had a physique made of iron, he just couldn't stand being tickled. Of course, this was only when he was relaxed. If he was really fighting, Su Weifeng's muscles would be tense, and even a blunt knife wouldn't be able to penetrate him, let alone tickle him. But since Su Weifeng was with Lin Zhuangxuan, he definitely couldn't tense his muscles, as it would easily hurt Lin Zhuangxuan. So when Lin Zhuangxuan made a scene, Su Weifeng couldn't help laughing. He quickly pushed Lin Zhuangxuan's hands away and said anxiously, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. That won't work either. You were so mean to me just now. I'm punishing you. Lin Zhuangxuan's little hand dodged Su Weifeng's hand while continuing to attack. Su Weifeng had experienced so many battles and encountered so many powerful enemies, and he was still able to survive. His reaction speed was absolutely amazing. With his resistance, no matter how tricks Lin Zhuangxuan played, she couldn't tickle Su Weifeng anymore. Haha, give up. I'm ticklish. I won't let you succeed. Su Weifeng was tickled a few times, and he stopped Lin Zhuangxuan from tickling him and teased Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan tried several times, but failed. She gritted her teeth and continued to tickle him, but she couldn't break through Su Weifeng's defense. I don't believe it. I can't tickle you. Lin Zhuangxuan stopped, wiped the sweat from her head, panted, and looked like she would not give up until she achieved her goal. I've said I'm satisfied, so don't tickle me. You look tired. Su Weifeng was ticklish, but seeing Lin Zhuangxuan's somewhat annoyed look, he had to persuade her. Really? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes and suddenly pounced on Su Weifeng. This? Su Weifeng quickly spread his hands to the side and grabbed Lin Zhuangxuan's shoulders. Lin Zhuangxuan's body was suspended in the air, so he simply ignored it and grabbed Su Weifeng directly. Su Weifeng stretched out his arms and lifted Lin Zhuangxuan up. His arms were longer than Lin Zhuangxuan's. Even if Lin Zhuangxuan stretched out his arms, he couldn't scratch Su Weifeng's itch at this time. You are cheating. Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Weifeng angrily. Auntie, I'm really ticklish. Can you spare me? Su Weifeng made a bitter face and took the initiative to show weakness. Don't even think about it. You peeked at me. Su Weifeng didn't pay attention at first, but when Lin Zhuangxuan called out, his eyes immediately looked at the place he shouldn't be looking at. His face suddenly became hot, and his eyes dodged. His arms also subconsciously released their strength. Who knew that Lin Zhuangxuan would pounce on him directly at this time, and directly pressed down one of Su Weifeng's arms, and tickled Su Weifeng with both hands again. I give in. I was wrong. Zhuangxuan, please spare me. Su Weifeng was completely helpless this time. Even if he was as strong as steel, he was now soft as a finger. Lin Zhuangxuan finally stopped. Although she had a good physique, she was exhausted from dealing with a man like Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng also had no strength to laugh. It's just, Lin Zhuangxuan was now lying on Su Weifeng's body. After the silence, the atmosphere suddenly became a little charming. Are you convinced? Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly raised her head and stared at Su Weifeng, but her face was red, as if it was about to bleed. I'm convinced. Su Weifeng's voice was very low, with a kind of magnetism. His face was hot, and his mouth was dry. HMPH, then I'll let you go this time. After Lin Zhuangxuan finished speaking, she turned over and lay down on the bed, pulling the quilt over her body. Thank you, lady, for sparing my life. Su Weifeng said softly, then took a deep breath and said, go to sleep. Yeah. Lin Zhuangxuan's voice was also very low, and the room fell into silence again. In the silence, the breathing and heartbeats of the two seemed to become clearer. The heartbeats were so fast and the breathing was so heavy. The noise just now really made it impossible for the two to calm down. Su Weifeng's heart was really confused. He really had the urge to kill Lin Zhuangxuan next to him on the spot. Weifeng. Lin Zhuangxuan's voice was as low as a mosquito, but it was still very clear in the quiet room. Yeah. Su Weifeng agreed. I feel you. You won't be impulsive, right? Lin Zhuangxuan's voice was even lower. Su Weifeng bit his lips very hard. The pain made his brain clearer and calmer. He took a deep breath and said, Zhuangxuan, we've gone too far. I'm really afraid that I'll do something. What should I do? Lin Zhuangxuan shrank back, glanced at Su Weifeng, and then shrank his head into the quilt. Sleep. Su Weifeng said these three words with great difficulty. He really felt for the first time that these three words actually required supreme perseverance to say. You really want to sleep with me? Lin Zhuangxuan poked her head out and stared at Su Weifeng in amazement. What? Su Weifeng was also a little confused. You are so bad. Lin Xuanxuan's eyes suddenly became blurred, and then she bit her lip and murmured, just this once, don't do it again in the future. I'm very sorry for my sister, there can't be a future. Su Weifeng was dumbfounded and stared at Lin Xuanxuan blankly. What's going on? Lin Xuanxuan actually agreed. You don't want me to take the initiative? Seeing that Su Weifeng didn't move, Lin Xuanxuan bit her lip and looked at Su Weifeng with some resentment. No. Su Weifeng shook his head quickly. Then come over. Anyway, it's the same thing. Don't let me worry here. It's better to be straightforward than to do it earlier or later. This time, Lin Xuanxuan spoke quite clearly, gritting his teeth, and looked a little ferocious. Su Weifeng was dumbfounded again. This was not what he meant at all. Why did Lin Xuanxuan say such a thing? Looking at Lin Xuanxuan's delicate face, and the charm of her eyes and eyebrows, Su Weifeng's breathing became rapid again, and his heart was beating wildly. This was definitely an extreme temptation. As a man, how could he resist such a temptation? Obviously, as long as he took action now, everything would be a matter of course. Su Weifeng's eyes became more and more scorching, and her body had involuntarily moved to Lin Xuanxuan's side. She could see Lin Xuanxuan's nervousness, but she could also see that she did not refuse. Chapter 193 Cover Up. That's absolutely not okay. Su Weifeng's face was about to touch Lin Xuanxuan's face. He suddenly turned over, jumped off the bed, and rushed out of the bedroom. In the bathroom, Su Weifeng poured cold water on his head for 5 or 6 minutes, and the heat in his body slowly subsided. What's wrong with you? Just as he was hesitating whether to go back to the room, his mother's voice rang out at the door of the bathroom. It's okay. Su Weifeng didn't even hear his mother's footsteps. For him, this was definitely a major mistake. It is conceivable how much impact the incident had on him. Didn't you just take a shower? There was some confusion in his mother's eyes at first, and then she showed an ambiguous smile on her face and said, after this, you can't take a cold shower. It's not good for your health. Su Weifeng's face suddenly turned black. His mother thought that he was sweating from exhaustion just now, so he came to take a shower. I know. Su Weifeng said, and then he slipped back to his room. He felt that facing his mother was also a very troublesome thing. Lin Xuanxuan lay on the bed sideways, with the quilt covering her shoulders and her hair covering her face. Su Weifeng didn't know if she was asleep, but it was obviously impossible. After groping his way onto the bed, Su Weifeng gritted his teeth and whispered, Xuanxuan, I'm sorry. Lin Xuanxuan suddenly turned around, with a smile on her face, just looking at him, without saying anything. This look made Su Weifeng feel scared, and he said awkwardly, I'm such a jerk, I almost couldn't control myself just now. Lin Xuanxuan gave Su Weifeng a thumbs up and said, you are awesome, you have completely passed my test. Test? Su Weifeng stared at Lin Xuanxuan blankly. The situation just now was still a test. If one of him couldn't hold back at that time, the two of them would have done something irreversible. Yes, it's a test. Otherwise, do you think I really want to do that with you? I'm your girlfriend cousin. If that happens to you, how can I face my sister in the future? Not only her, but the whole family. I have no face to face. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched and said, Xuanxuan, your test is really terrible. Lin Xuanxuan raised his chin and said, otherwise, how can I verify how good you are to my sister? You have definitely passed my purgatory level test. Seeing that Su Weifeng still had a dull look on his face, Lin Xuanxuan pinched his face and said with a smile, okay, go to bed. Then he turned around and turned his back to Su Weifeng again. Oh. Su Weifeng agreed a little stupidly. Su Weifeng's mind was really confused by Lin Xuanxuan. After lying there for a while, his thoughts finally became clear. No. This is definitely not a test. Su Weifeng made this judgment quickly. Lin Xuanxuan's behavior just now was definitely not a test. She was definitely willing to have that kind of thing with Su Weifeng at that time. Lin Xuanxuan was definitely not the kind of person who flirted with women, nor was she a very casual girl. The only reason for the situation just now was that the two of them completely aroused her desire during the fight. Even someone like Su Weifeng who had experienced all kinds of big scenes could not control himself at that moment. Lin Zhuangxuan did not have that kind of training, so her self-control ability was definitely not very strong. It was normal to have that kind of reaction. Fortunately, I controlled myself at that time, otherwise this matter would really be a big trouble. Oh, it doesn't seem to be a big trouble. He and Qiao Yushan are also fake. At most, everything will be explained, and Lin Zhuangxuan will be treated as a real girlfriend. But, can he do this now? He can't even control his own destiny now, so how can he give Lin Zhuangxuan a good life? That is also an extremely irresponsible behavior. As for the test she mentioned, it is nothing more than finding a way out for herself. Otherwise how can the two face it now? Of course, he would not expose Lin Zhuangxuan. They should just pretend to be confused about this matter, so that they would not be able to face each other in the future. The room was very quiet now. Su Weifeng could hear that, although Lin Zhuangxuan was trying her best to control her breathing, it was still not stable. Her heartbeat was still so fast. It was obvious that she was still not asleep. I'm afraid that she is more uncomfortable than him now. Su Weifeng sighed softly in his heart. Now he should go to sleep first, so that Lin Zhuangxuan can relax a little. After thinking through all this, Su Weifeng's mentality also calmed down. Although he was tossing for a long time, he finally fell asleep first. I don't know how long it took. Lin Zhuangxuan slowly turned around. In the darkness, her eyes were very bright. She just looked at Su Weifeng, and the expression on her face kept changing. Finally, a smile slowly appeared on her face, and the smile became sweeter and sweeter. Then she yawned, and slowly closed her eyes. The next morning, Su Weifeng woke up first, and then found that Lin Zhuangxuan was once again in his arms. He knew that Lin Zhuangxuan definitely didn't do it on purpose. This was completely an unconscious action after falling asleep. Su Weifeng didn't move either. He just hugged her, and closed his eyes again. When he woke up again, he met Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes. Hey, why did you take advantage of me while I was asleep? Lin Zhuangxuan took the initiative. Su Weifeng chuckled, with a doting and gentle look in his eyes, and said, the air conditioner is a little high. I'm afraid you'll be cold. Okay, since you found a good reason, I won't bother with you. You still can't get up. You haven't taken enough advantage. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted a little arrogantly. Then do you have to let me go too? You are the one who won't let me go, you big hooligan. Lin Zhuangxuan turned over and got out of Su Weifeng's arms. On the way to the company, Lin Zhuangxuan was watching the video on his mobile phone and commenting from time to time. After arriving at the company, Lin Zhuangxuan became busy. Su Weifeng only saw her twice throughout the morning. Lin Zhuangxuan also greeted him casually and then continued to do whatever she wanted. It seemed that everything was very normal, but Su Weifeng seemed to feel a little awkward. At lunch, Lin Zhuangxuan did not come to eat with him. Su Weifeng knew that what happened yesterday still made Lin Zhuangxuan unable to face him as usual. After dinner, Su Weifeng was about to lie on the sofa to rest for a while, but the door was pushed open directly, and Lin Zhuangxuan walked in and closed the door casually. Oh, I'm so tired. Lin Zhuangxuan came directly and sat beside Su Weifeng's legs, pushed him, and said, get up, hurry up and massage me, to comfort me, a hard-working person. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment. Lin Zhuangxuan seemed to be the same as before. Chapter 194 Troublemakers are coming. Su Weifeng hurriedly got off the ground, and Lin Zhuangxuan kicked off her shoes and lay on the sofa. Sitting next to Lin Zhuangxuan, Su Weifeng massaged her lower back and back. Before a few times, Lin Zhuangxuan said, don't you need to dredge the meridians? Oh, I need a few more times. Then why don't you massage? Lin Zhuangxuan turned around and rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng. Lifting up her clothes, Su Weifeng began to massage again, but Lin Zhuangxuan said, you unbutton it yourself. I'm so sleepy today. I'll sleep for a while. After the massage, you can help me button it up. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched. Why did Lin Zhuangxuan seem to be more casual with him? After struggling for a while, Su Weifeng still did it. Since Lin Zhuangxuan was so casual, if he was pretentious again, it would seem that he had some dirty thoughts. I'm not even nervous at all. When Su Weifeng unbuttoned her clothes, Lin Zhuangxuan's muscles were completely relaxed. When he massaged her again, Her muscles were not tense at all. This is definitely the best state for massage. Damn, there's no reaction to the massage from the opposite sex. How brave of you. Su Weifeng complained in his heart, but he relaxed. He realized that after the two of them suddenly broke a boundary yesterday, there were still some changes. Yesterday, Lin Zhuangxuan didn't go to bed until around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Today, she was busy all morning and soon fell asleep. When it was time to go to work, Lin Zhuangxuan was still asleep, and Su Weifeng didn't have the heart to call her. Ding ding. With 2 knocks on the door was pushed open and a male employee rushed in. Boss Su, it's bad. Someone is teasing Sun Yumeng. Lin Zhuangxuan, who was originally asleep, sat up suddenly and said, "What's going on?" The employee didn't find it strange that Lin Zhuangxuan was here and hurriedly said, "Boss Lin, it seems that someone from the opposite company is pestering Sun Yumeng there." Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng and said, "Let's go and take a look." When they walked out of the company, they saw 4 young men blocking Sun Yumeng's way, all with a playful look on their faces. Sun Yumeng hugged her shoulders, her face tense, and said angrily, "Get out of the way. Wait for our general manager Su to come out, then you will have a bad ending." "Hey, is your general manager Su so awesome? We won't let you go over. Come on, let your general manager Su come out. We want to see who can be so awesome." The 4 young men laughed and didn't take Sun Yumeng's words to heart at all. The 4 of them were not simple. All of them were from prominent families, especially a guy named Li Zihao, who was a child of a big family. They heard that Xu Lingling had opened a company, so they came to play. When they arrived here, they hadn't seen Xu Lingling yet, but they saw Sun Yumeng. For these people, flirting with a beautiful girl is a common thing. As for what Sun Yumeng said about General Manager Su, they didn't take it to heart. In the eyes of others, being able to open such a company is also a very awesome boss, but in their eyes, this is clearly a small company, and the general manager is nothing compared to them. "Boss Su!" Sun Yumeng shouted in surprise when she saw Su Weifeng coming out. Su Weifeng saw that these guys had not made any move on Sun Yumeng, but only stopped her and teased her with words, so he did not make any move directly. The 4 guys turned around, and their eyes were all focused on Lin Zhuangxuan. "Hey, this place is nice. There are actually 2 high-end beauties like this. This is indeed a pleasant surprise. Lingling's company is not bad. We must come here more often in the future." These people did not even look at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng's face sank and he said, "Go wherever it's cool. Get out of here. Yo." The 4 people then turned their eyes to Su Weifeng. "Boy, are you the boss, Su? You are so arrogant. You dare to say this to us? Do you want to stop running the company?" These guys all looked at Su Weifeng with a teasing look. They had the strength. With such a small company, as long as they made some moves, they could make Su Weifeng's company go bankrupt. Lin Zhuangxuan's face turned cold, and he said angrily, "You bastards, stop talking nonsense here. It's just Xu Lingling who wants to cause trouble. Let her come out." The other 3 people were the ones who spoke just now. Li Zihao had been silent. At this time, he narrowed his eyes, looked at Lin Zhuangxuan, and said, "You actually have a grudge against Lingling. That's great. Let's vent Lingling's anger. I, Li Zihao, tell you today that before I take action against you, quickly close the company, otherwise you will have nowhere to cry when the time comes." What a big tone. Then you try it. Lin Zhuangxuan gritted his teeth and became more annoyed when he heard this, believing that it was Xu Lingling who came to cause trouble. "Then you won't cry until you see the coffin, so don't blame me for being rude." Li Zihao sneered. The other guy laughed and said, "Do you guys think we are scaring you? I can tell you responsibly that your company would not be able to operate for a week after yesterday." "A week? Are you kidding? I think it will be good if it can last 3 days. Do you know who this is? Li Zihao, the son of the Li family. Brother Hao's family owns a large share of this office building. Once Brother Hao makes a move, 3 days will be too much. 1 day will be almost enough." The company employees who were surrounding there all changed their faces when they heard this. These guys are definitely super rich second generations. Can Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan afford to offend them? Seeing everyone's reaction, the 4 guys became even more proud. One of them said with a smile, "But we are not giving you no chance. You two beautiful girls, beg us nicely. Maybe we will let you work here for a few more days. Yes, come on, now it's up to you. Haha, do you think everyone has the opportunity to play with us? This is your chance to fly up to the tree and become a phoenix. Lin Zhuangxuan and Sun Yumeng's faces became even uglier. This is a naked humiliation. Su Weifeng's face sank and said, my patience is limited. If you don't get out, don't blame us for being rude to you. Uncourtesy? Come on, then be rude to us, and let us see. Haha, I haven't met such a courageous person for a long time. Come on, I want to see how you are rude. All these people laughed, and they laughed unscrupulously. Chapter 195. Do you want to apologize? What are you doing? Xu Lingling's voice suddenly came from the elevator in trance, and then she walked over here quickly. Li Zihao immediately said with a smile on his face, Lingling, I'm teaching these ignorant people a lesson for you. Teach them a lesson? Xu Lingling looked at the others, and her face suddenly turned black. Li Zihao had ideas about Xu Lingling, but he had no chance at all, because of the marriage between the Xu family and the Mi family. Recently, he suddenly heard that the marriage between the Mi family and the Xu family was a failure, and his ideas about Xu Lingling became active again, and this matter was supported by his family. So as long as he could please Xu Lingling, he could even do things without restraint. Li Zihao said proudly, yes, I have already told them that in a few days, their company will not be able to continue. Another guy immediately said with a smile, this is necessary. If you dare to offend Lingling, you will offend Zihao and us. Not only will their company not be able to continue, but we can also make it difficult for them to move here. Get out. Who told you to come here and make trouble? Xu Lingling suddenly roared. Gap. The smiles on the faces of the four guys froze. Li Zihao coughed lightly and said, Lingling, we are not here to make trouble. It's not good for you, a girl, to be a villain, so I will be the villain. Xu Lingling pointed at Li Zihao with gritted teeth and said hatefully, Li Zihao, you bastard, your head is definitely full of shit. Either you get out of here now, or get out of here immediately. No, you apologize to them immediately. Apologize? You want us to apologize to them? Li Zihao's eyes widened, as if he had heard something incredible. If you don't apologize, I won't recognize you anymore. Get out of here as far as you can and don't show up in front of me. Xu Lingling said it with absolute determination. Li Zihao finally realized that Xu Lingling was not joking, and the corners of his mouth twitched several times. Okay, I apologize. Li Zihao took a deep breath. Although he was also a member of the family, his Li family was still a little worse than the Xu family, so whether he could marry Xu Lingling was a very important matter for the Li family. Turning around, Li Zihao looked at Su Weifeng, Lin Zhuangxuan and others, and said, we were wrong just now. I apologize to you. Is this the attitude of apology? Lin Zhuangxuan was sure that Xu Lingling was acting here, so he sneered and mocked. Don't be shameless. I apologize to you, and have given you enough face. Li Zihao's face immediately sank. For him, it was not easy to say the words of apology. In his heart, he felt greatly insulted. Lin Zhuangxuan's words made him explode. Haha, you are really proud of yourself. Lin Zhuangxuan was even more disdainful, and then cast his eyes on Xu Lingling. Xu Lingling could not help but understand the meaning in Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes, and angrily said, will you apologize? Li Zihao gritted his teeth and said, Lingling, I have apologized to them. You should understand that, if it weren't for you, how could I, Li Zihao, apologize to people like them? You. Xu Lingling was speechless for a moment. She knew very well that what Li Zihao said was the truth. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, you teased our employees, and now you apologize to us, as if you have done us a great favor. We ordinary people really can't bear your apology. Don't go too far. Li Zihao glared again, and it was a fierce warning look. Lin Zhuangxuan was bullied. Su Weifeng's face suddenly darkened, and he said coldly, I'll give you 3 times to apologize to me properly. 1. Li Zihao and others were stunned for a moment, and then one of them couldn't help laughing and said, this kid is really good at pretending. 2. Fuck, Lingling, it's not that we don't give you face. This kid is really too good at pretending. You can't blame us for this. That's right, kid, I want to see what you can do to us if we don't apologize. Xu Lingling's mouth twitched. Even Mi Xianggang and Ko Qingming suffered a loss here at Su Weifeng, and then they didn't make a fuss again. With just a few of them, they will definitely suffer this loss. With a sneer, she said, since you don't want to be good, I don't bother to care about you. In her heart, she really wanted to see how Su Weifeng handled this kind of thing. She had never figured out what means Su Weifeng used to solve the Mi family and the Ko family. 3. Su Weifeng spit out this number, and then walked towards the 4 people. Boy, what's the matter? Do you still want to fight? One of the guys stepped forward immediately. He was a fitness expert. His whole body was made of flesh and bones, and he was more than 1.8 meters tall. He was really confident in fighting. Seeing that Su Weifeng didn't answer, the guy immediately got angry and shouted, "You really deserve a beating. I'm going to teach you a lesson today." As he spoke, he clenched his fist and punched Su Weifeng in the chest. This punch was really neat and powerful. The girls in Su Weifeng's company couldn't help but scream. Bang! With a light sound, the fist stopped in front of Su Weifeng's chest. Su Weifeng had already grabbed the other's fist with one hand. Boy, you still have some skills. The guy was stunned for a moment and wanted to retract his fist. But when he pulled hard, it didn't move at all, as if his fist was welded to steel. The guy's face suddenly changed, and his other fist hit Su Weifeng's face fiercely, trying to attack Wei to save Xiao. But at this moment, a strong force came from his captured right fist, causing his raised arm to suddenly fall limply. Ah! He couldn't help but scream, and his body leaned back. His knees became weak, as if he couldn't dissipate this force, except by kneeling down. Su Weifeng, give me some face. Xu Lingling was sharp-eyed, and saw the seriousness of the problem at once. It was okay for these people to be beaten, but kneeling in front of others would make things worse, so she hurriedly shouted loudly. Su Weifeng glanced at Xu Lingling, and the strength in his hands stopped increasing, and the guy's knees finally didn't touch the ground. Apologize or not? Su Weifeng asked coldly. Xu Lingling said anxiously, apologize quickly, otherwise don't treat me as a friend in the future. Chapter 196 for Idiots. I apologize. We shouldn't have teased your company's employees. Sorry. Xu Lingling gave this guy a way out and apologized without hesitation. Su Weifeng snorted and let go. The guy almost knelt down and quickly stood up and took 2 steps. Only then did he stand firm, but his face was already red. But the look he gave Su Weifeng was filled with fear. He often worked out and was very clear about his strength. He was also very proud. Even the bodyguards at home were not much stronger than him in terms of strength. But Su Weifeng just grabbed his hand casually and was able to crush his strength. This was enough to show how strong the other party was in terms of strength. This was definitely not something he could compare to. And you? Su Weifeng glanced at Li Zihao and the others. Apologize. This guy's really not easy to mess with. The guy who apologized first reminded Li Zihao in a low voice. Li Zihao's face was ugly. He took a breath and said, okay, I apologize. Although it was still a brief apology, his attitude was no longer as arrogant as before. The other 2 also apologized quickly. Xu Lingling immediately shouted, go in, I'll deal with you later. Li Zihao and his men hurried into Xu Lingling's company. They didn't want to embarrass themselves here again. In addition, they also wanted to ask Xu Lingling who were the people in the opposite company. Xu Lingling came to Su Weifeng and said, they didn't tell me before they came. I also apologize to you for what they did. Lin Zhuangxuan said disdainfully, is it interesting? Xu Lingling raised her eyebrows and said, Lin Zhuangxuan, I, Xu Lingling, dare to take responsibility for what I did. If I found them, I would dare to admit it. Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, who knows you? Seeing that the 2 were about to go up, Su Weifeng quickly winked at Sun Yumeng. Sun Yumeng was smart. She came over to Su Weifeng and said, Boss Su, Boss Lin, thank you for coming in time. Thank you. Lin Zhuangxuan's attention was diverted. She said, you are our employee, so we have to protect you. You can't be bullied by anyone. Then she looked at Xu Lingling again. Sun Yumeng immediately said, Boss Lin, I just have an idea and want to ask you for your advice. Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Xu Lingling and turned to go into the company with Sun Yumeng. When the other employees saw Lin Zhuangxuan and Xu Lingling fighting, they had already slipped back to the company. It's better to see less of this kind of thing. The boss's gossip is not so pretty. Su Weifeng and Xu Lingling were the only ones left in the corridor. Xu Lingling raised her chin and said, "You don't think I did this, do you?" Su Weifeng said calmly, "Of course not, but whoever comes here, you'd better restrain yourself. I can't let my employees be bullied." "Got it, I'll pay attention next time." Xu Lingling nodded, then waved her hand, and went back to her company. As soon as Xu Lingling entered, the 4 guys were waiting at the door, each with a very ugly face. "Are you all very unconvinced?" Xu Lingling glanced at them and asked unhappily. The other 3 people didn't say anything, and Li Zihao said sullenly, "Lingling, even if that kid can fight, so what? In today's society, there are many people who can fight. These people are just bodyguards for us. I can crush him to death later." Xu Lingling looked at the other 3 and said, "Do you think so too?" The 3 of them nodded immediately. Xu Lingling curled her lips in disdain and said, "You guys only know how to spend your days drinking and partying, thinking that I'm the best in the world and you are the second. Let me tell you, there are many people in this world who are more awesome than you. I asked you to apologize just now, but that was to save you. Otherwise, you would be beaten up, and it would be for nothing." "Fuck, how is that possible? Who is that guy? So awesome?" a guy immediately shouted with his eyes wide open. None of the other 3 people believed it. Xu Lingling took a glass of water and sat on the sofa. After taking a sip, she said, "Do you know why I cancelled my marriage with Mi Xiangang?" Li Xianhao said, "Didn't you win the race with Mi Xiangang?" Then he had no choice but to agree to cancel the engagement. Xu Lingling raised her lips and said, "That's what happened. Do you know who helped me win?" "Who? Was it that guy?" Li Xianhao asked himself and answered, "That's right." Xu Lingling nodded. Li Zihao said, "I understand. So you owe this guy a favor. Well, let's not argue with him. Let's forget about today's matter. Lingling, if you had said so earlier, how could we not give you face?" "That's right, let's forget about it." Several people were showing off their magnanimity, and then they found that Xu Lingling was looking at them with an idiotic look, so they couldn't say anything more. But none of them felt that there was anything wrong with what they said. Li Zihao grinned and said, "Lingling, what did we say wrong?" Xu Lingling said unhappily, "Think about it, he beat Mi Xiangang. Will Mi Xiangang cause trouble for him?" Li Xianhao said without hesitation, "Of course he must. It's such a loss of face. He can't do anything to you. The anger must be taken out on him." "I understand." The other guy immediately slapped his thigh and said, "Mi Xiangang and Qiao Qingming will definitely deal with him, so why do we need to do anything? Besides, if they deal with this guy, he will definitely suffer more." No, Lingling doesn't let us deal with him, because Mi Xiangang and Qiao Qingming want to deal with them. If we deal with him first, what's the matter? Mi Xiangang and Qiao Qingming will still be unhappy. Yes, you are right, that's the truth. Xu Lingling stroked her forehead. How did she make such idiot friends? Why are their brain circuits so simple? Stop. Xu Lingling couldn't stand it any longer and waved her hands to stop them, saying, "It's been so many days. If it were you, could you have endured it for so long? This can't." Several people looked at each other and answered in unison. Xu Lingling said, "That's it. If you can't endure it, how can Mi Xiangang and Qiao Qingming endure it? Oh my god, they were too gentle, they didn't even kill him." Xu Lingling's face turned black, and she really wanted to throw these guys out. Is there anyone more stupid than them? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197. Qiao Qingming's father. Mi Xiangang and Qiao Qingming came to look for him a long time ago. I don't know the details, but after looking for him, Mi Xiangang went back to the provincial capital directly, and Qiao Qingming didn't make any moves. No one mentioned the matter since then. Afterwards, the Mi family and the Qiao family didn't make any moves, but he is here fine. Nothing happened. Do you think this matter is that simple? Xu Lingling didn't want to waste words with them. No matter how she tempted them, they would not think in a normal way, so they could only speak out in one breath. Lee Zahao frowned and said, you mean, he has a deep background? Xu Lingling shrugged and said, I don't know about that, but in my opinion, he is definitely not simple. Then you came here to find out his background? Lee Zahao's eyes lit up. Xu Lingling knew what Lee Zahao was thinking about her. Seeing that he was thinking this way, she could save herself the trouble and said, you are finally smart for once. Lee Zahao puffed out his chest and said, of course, I have always been smart. Xu Lingling's face turned black. Could she still have some shame? Lee Zahao licked his face and said, Lingling, do you want us to help you do something? Xu Lingling said unhappily, no, if you are willing to come over, I welcome you, but don't go to the other side to make trouble. There are many beautiful girls over there. You guys shouldn't flirt with women when you see them. Several people laughed. As for flirting with girls, they had no scruples even in front of Xu Lingling. Lee Zahao said quickly, I had nothing to do with it just now. I didn't flirt with that girl. Lingling, you don't know my feelings. Xu Lingling stood up and changed the subject directly, saying, okay, since you are here, then help me do some work. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Xu Lingling's status is relatively high among these rich children, so they are very happy to do it when she orders them at this time. After a while, Xu Lingling walked to the door and saw two people coming over at a glance. One of them was Qiao Qingming's father Qiao Yushan. She quickly stepped back and secretly glanced at Qiao Yushan. Although she knew Qiao Yushan, she had almost no contact with him because of their seniority. It was impossible for Qiao Yushan to come here to find her. It was obvious that he came to find Su Weifeng. Sure enough, Qiao Yushan went straight into Su Weifeng's company. She really wanted to go in and take a peek, but when she thought that everyone in Su Weifeng's company knew her and regarded her as an enemy, she decided not to go and ask for trouble. She could roughly infer the result by seeing what Qiao Yushan looked like. There was a knock on the door of Su Weifeng's office, and Sun Yumeng came in and said, Mr. Su, two gentlemen are here to talk about business. Su Weifeng stood up and said, let them in. Sun Yumeng let Qiao Yushan and the other man in, poured them a glass of water, and then left. The girl had a good eye, and was very diligent. You are from the Qiao family, please sit down. Su Weifeng recognized at a glance that the man behind him was the Qiao family bodyguard who came here that day, and the other middle-aged man had an extraordinary demeanor, and was obviously not an ordinary person. Qiao Yushan nodded and said expressionlessly, I'm Qiao Qingming's father, Qiao Yushan. Su Weifeng just gestured for him to sit down, then sat back in his seat and said, Mr. Qiao, what do you want to do for me this time? Qiao Yushan had been looking at Su Weifeng. This young man didn't look unusual. After checking his background, he found that his rank in the army was not low, but that was only in the army. Now that he is in the local area, he is completely incomparable to their Qiao family. But the other party was so calm and indifferent, which obviously did not take him, a member of the Qiao family, seriously. This made Qiao Yushan very unhappy, but he didn't show it on his face at all, and said, I won't beat around the bush. Give me the video of my son and me Xiangang. Oh, video? What video? Su Weifeng pretended to be confused. Qiao Yushan said in a deep voice, young man, don't go too far. I know you are good at fighting, but in this world, there are too few things that can be done with great skills. As for your status as a colonel in the army, that is only in the past, and it is only useful in the army. It is useless to me. Su Weifeng drank a sip of tea and said, yes, we are all ordinary citizens, and there is no distinction between noble and humble. Qiao Yushan smiled faintly and said, it seems that you are not familiar with the difference between the local area and the army. Su Weifeng sneered disdainfully and said, is there a difference? Of course there is. The people in the army are iron-blooded men who defend their country and protect the peace of the country so that people can live in peace and happiness. What we least want to see is that the people we protect take advantage of their power to bully others and think that they can do whatever they want because they have some power. Qiao Yushan snorted and said, you are really brave. Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan looked at each other without giving in and said, if you are timid, can you still be a soldier? Qiao Yushan could not help but avoid Su Weifeng's gaze. The other party's gaze was too sharp, which made him uncomfortable. Boy, it seems that there is nothing to discuss between us. Let's make some conditions. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, "What conditions? I don't understand." He pretended to be confused again. Qiao Yushan made Su Weifeng very annoyed. This guy was sharp for a while and pretended to be confused for a while. He was really not that easy to deal with. Staring at Su Weifeng, Qiao Yushan said with a gloomy face, "Do you think that our Qiao family can't do anything to you? Then I really don't know. You can try." Su Weifeng had a faint smile on his face. "You." Qiao Yushan suddenly laughed and said, "I haven't seen such an arrogant young man like you for many years. Then I really feel sorry for you. There is no one in your Qiao family who can cheer you up, and no one you can look up to." Su Weifeng's words were really choking. Qiao Yushan almost flipped the table. Normally, he would have ordered his bodyguards to teach the man a lesson, but thinking about how all 4 bodyguards were beaten by Su Weifeng last time, this one was really useless. At this moment, he suddenly felt a little depressed. When the opponent was no longer afraid of the power of the Qiao family, force was the best solution, but now it was useless. Facing Su Weifeng, he felt helpless and painful. Chapter 198. Cheating someone doesn't pay for your life. Taking a deep breath, Qiao Yushan suppressed his irritability and said slowly, "Give me the video. Our Qiao family will cooperate with your company and invest money in you to make your company bigger." Su Weifeng took a sip of tea and said nothing. Qiao Yushan narrowed his eyes and said, "No matter how hard you try, your small company is still limited. If our Qiao family helps you, you will get a lot of resources, which is the foundation for the development of your company." Su Weifeng put down the water cup and said, "Mr. Qiao, you are really a good businessman. Now it is clear that you want to beg me and take control of my company in the hands of your Qiao family. Do you think I'm an idiot?" Qiao Yushan said lightly, "We will invest in you, but we will only hold a certain amount of shares, and the actual management will still be you." Su Weifeng waved his hand impatiently, as if to drive away a fly, and said, "If this is all you think, then you should leave." Qiao Yushan didn't speak for a while, and said, "You said I was a businessman, and I think you are also a good businessman. Okay, I'll give you 1 million. Su Weifeng looked at Qiao Yushan in surprise and didn't speak. This expression made Qiao Yushan stunned for a moment. What does it mean? 1 million scared the other party, and then a smile appeared on his face, saying, "Give me the video now. I will transfer the money to you immediately." "Okay." Su Weifeng agreed happily, opened the drawer, and took out a USB flash drive, threw it directly to Qiao Yushan, and said, "The video is genuine." Then he directly reported the account number. "You are quite sensible," Qiao Yushan said lightly. A small 1 million suppressed the other party, and immediately looked down on Su Weifeng, and then directly transferred 1 million to Su Weifeng. Looking at the notification sound of the mobile phone, Su Weifeng smiled and said, "This business is really easy to do, Mr. Qiao. Come more often in the future." "Of course I will come." Qiao Yushan sneered, got up and left. Now that the handle is no longer in Su Weifeng's hands, how could the Qiao family let Su Weifeng go? Haha, this business is really good. Our company has worked so hard to sell a film, but it doesn't make much money. This casual film was sold for 1 million yuan to only one buyer. I have to find a few more buyers. Qiao Yushan and his bodyguards had already walked out the door, but suddenly turned around and stared at Su Weifeng, saying, "Isn't this the only way to save it?" Su Weifeng said naturally, "Of course, such a good thing cannot be saved in only one copy. What if it is lost, or the U-disc is broken? Of course I have to save it in several places to avoid losing it." Qiao Yushan's face was so dark. Su Weifeng immediately said apologetically, "Oh my god, you didn't think this was a unique edition, did you? Oh my god, look at you, you didn't even say anything." Qiao Yushan was almost vomiting blood because of Su Weifeng's anger. If it was anyone else in the Qiao family, he would really just let it go, but this matter concerned his son. If this matter got out, Qiao Qingming's image would definitely be greatly damaged, and his status in the Qiao family would also plummet. So no matter how angry he was, he could only endure it. Gritting his teeth, he entered the house again and said angrily, very good. I really underestimated you. Praise." Su Weifeng politely clasped his fists. Gritting his teeth, Qiao Yushan said, "Make an offer. I want all of them, and no one can be left behind." Oh, you want to take it all? Then let me calculate. This one is 1 million. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, a total of 8. While Su Weifeng was talking, he took out several USB flash drives from the drawer and counted them one by one. Then he looked up at Qiao Yushan and said, we do business the same way. 1 million each, no cheating, but considering that you are a repeat customer, I will give you a 9-digit price, 89,702, and round off the difference, 7 million. Are you sure you don't have any more? Qiao Yushan's eyes were murderous. Don't worry, don't worry. I'm a business person who is honest. If I have it, I have it, and if I don't, I don't. You'd better not lie to me. Absolutely not. You bought so much. If I have more, it's not a scarce commodity. How can I sell it at a good price? Besides, if I do this, you won't cooperate with me anymore in the future, right? Qiao Yushan signaled the bodyguard to take the USB drive and said, I'm still cooperating with you? Haha, you think too much. Then he also happily transferred the 7 million to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng looked at the transfer number on his phone carefully like a money grubber and said, boss, you are so generous. I really like working with you. If you have any good actors, please send them to me. I will definitely make a better movie for them than this one. Qiao Yushan was not a fool like Li Zihao and the others. He understood the meaning of Su Weifeng's words directly. This was a threat to him. If the Qiao family sent people to trouble them again, they would definitely deal with these people in the same way. Very good. I hope you really have this ability. Qiao Qingming gritted his teeth and threw down this sentence, turned around and left. He was really afraid that, if he stayed here, Su Weifeng would be angry to death. After entering the elevator, Qiao Yushan said with a gloomy face, this guy's definitely not as simple as shown in the information. He must have a stronger background. How come we haven't found out anything yet? The bodyguard whispered, Mr. Qiao, based on my experience in the army, there are only two possibilities for his situation. Either it is true, without any falsehood, or what? Qiao Yushan frowned. The bodyguard took a deep breath and said, either all his information is fake, and anyone who has such fake identity information is definitely not easy to mess with. Qiao Yushan stared at the bodyguard and said slowly, you mean, he is very likely to have a strong military background, and is hiding it? The bodyguard nodded and said, I think this possibility is very high. If he is just a simple colonel, how can he compete with the Qiao family? He himself would definitely not be so arrogant. Qiao Yushan nodded lightly and said, I feel that this guy is fearless. It seems that we really can't do anything reckless. This time I can be considered to be spending money to avoid disaster. The bodyguard could not respond to such a topic. Qiao Yushan shook his head again and said, don't take any action against him for the time being. Let's see how the situation develops. Chapter 199. Big Profit. Xu Lingling and several others hid behind the door, watching Qiao Yushan leave with his bodyguards. Just leaving like that? Li Zihao asked in confusion. Another guy said, yeah, they didn't destroy the company. Qiao Qingming's father is really good-tempered. Xu Lingling said unhappily, are your heads full of shit? If it were that simple, would the Qiao family have such a good temper? If you provoke Qiao Qingming, would the Qiao family swallow their anger? Several people looked at each other. Li Zihao coughed lightly and said, we don't have to make things awkward with him. Xu Lingling snorted and said, what if things get awkward? Only your Li Zihao family can still have some face, but if Qiao Yushan shows up, I'm afraid your Li family won't have much face, right? The status of the Qiao family is still higher than that of the Li family here, and Qiao Yushan is a very important figure in the Qiao family, so his status is quite high. Except for the head of the family, the rest of the Li family is definitely not as important as Qiao Yushan. Li Zihao's face turned black, and he said, Lingling, you mean that the people on the other side are the ones that Qiao Yushan dare not offend? Xu Lingling rolled her eyes at him and said, you finally got the hang of it. I'm even sure that Qiao Yushan should have suffered a loss this time before he left. Oh my god, how is that possible? The other few people seemed very unconvinced. Xu Lingling snorted and said, whether you believe it or not is your business, but I remind you again that, if you still want to come to my place to play, don't provoke the people on the other side, otherwise I won't welcome you in the future. What if the people on the other side provoke us first? A guy said unconvinced. Then bear it. Xu Lingling glared and turned to walk inside. In Su Weifeng's office, Lin Zhuangxuan half lying on the desk, supporting his chin with both hands, looking at Su Weifeng with a smile, said, "I heard that you got rich." "Rich? What kind of wealth?" Su Weifeng pretended to be confused. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes and said, "Do you want to keep it all for yourself? I put a lot of effort into that film." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "Since you said so, let's split it in half." Okay. Lin Zhuangxuan looked very greedy and said, "Come on, transfer it to me. I won't be polite." Su Weifeng directly transferred it to Lin Zhuangxuan. "Oh my god, you are so cruel. You took 800,000 yuan at once." Lin Zhuangxuan looked at the extra amount of money starting with 4 in his account and grinned. "Oh, did I transfer it to the wrong person?" Su Weifeng immediately checked his records. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed happily. "Haha, you transferred 400,000 yuan to me. What are you looking at? Look again." Su Weifeng rolled his eyes at Lin Zhuangxuan. "Did I see it wrong? 1, 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million. Damn, 4 million. Lin Zhuangxuan's mouth twitched, and she said, "Are you sure you didn't transfer it by mistake? Oh, then I'll give you 40, and give me back the rest." Su Weifeng said with a smile. Lin Zhuangxuan grinned and said, "Just give it to you. It's okay for me to cheat you of a few tens of thousands of yuan, but it will be hot for me to hold so much money. I won't be able to sleep well tonight." While Lin Zhuangxuan was talking, she directly transferred the money back. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile. This is also the likable part of Lin Zhuangxuan. She has never been so eager for money. Just enough is enough. This is what you don't want. Su Weifeng teased her. No, it's too much. But, you can treat me to a meal or something. Or, you can buy 2 cars, the kind of business cars, so that it will be convenient for us to go out and shoot a scene or something. How about it?" When Lin Zhuangxuan said this, her eyes were shining. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "No problem. Let's go buy 2 now. Besides, you, the boss, don't have a car either. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? Let's buy them together." Okay. Lin Zhuangxuan stood up excitedly. The two of them have always been action oriented, and they went straight to the 4S store when they said they would buy. "Oh my god, why is this business car so expensive? I thought it was only more than 100,000 yuan." After walking around for a while, Lin Zhuangxuan whispered in Su Weifeng's ear. Su Weifeng said, "Business cars are not passenger cars. They are comfortable and luxurious, so the price is relatively higher, but it's only a few 100,000. I made 8 million today." Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, "I was just joking with you. That's your money. If you want to buy a car for the company, you have to use the company's money. In the end, it will be the company's asset. How can you confuse public and private?" "You're right. If we spend our own money and put it into the company's account, we will lose money, and it will be a bargain for that guy Qiao Yushan." Lin Zhuangxuan's mouth twitched, and he rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng and said, "They have invested so much money in us, and you." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "It's just a small amount of money. You don't have to pay attention to him at all." Lin Zhuangxuan wanted to refute, but thinking about Su Weifeng's strength, the 5 million from Mingyang Company was clearly given away for free. "I can't pay attention to it. It's what it should be. Anyway, I can't cheat other people's money. The company's accounts must be clear." "Haha, it's up to you." Su Weifeng didn't insist. Lin Zhuangxuan's principle of doing things was still necessary. Lin Zhuangxuan nodded and said, "So I still plan to buy 2 cheaper ones. About 100,000 yuan will do. Then there's no need to buy cheap ones. The company has enough money." The company still has more than 3 million yuan on its books, which Su Weifeng is also very clear about. Lin Zhuangxuan said firmly, No, there are many places in the company where money will be spent in the future. The money must be used where it matters. As long as the car is useful, it's fine. There's no need to make it so high-end." The clerk who had been following the two of them didn't hear what they said, but from their tone and attitude, he understood that the two would not buy the business cars in the store, so his attitude was not so positive at this time. "Su Weifeng, you are really good. What's going on? Another woman bought you a car?" A man's voice came from behind. When Su Weifeng heard this voice, his expression suddenly became a little strange. He really didn't expect that he would meet the good-looking Wei Lijian here again. Moreover, this guy actually spoke to him in such a sarcastic tone. Where did he get the confidence from? Chapter 200. Admit your stubbornness. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan turned around and saw two men, one of whom was Wei Lijian, and the other man was also quite young. Judging from his clothes, he should also be a rich man. Lin Zhuangxuan was a little confused. She had not seen Wei Lijian yet. Wei Lijian looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, "Hey, it's changed again. Who is this rich woman?" Although Lin Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan look the same, they are still very different in temperament and dress. In such a situation, people who are familiar with them are often more likely to make mistakes, while people who don't know them will not regard them as the same person. The last time Wei Lijian saw Qiao Yushan, he only felt that she was very beautiful and remembered her identity more, but he really didn't have a deep impression of her appearance. Although Lin Zhuangxuan now feels a bit like Qiao Yushan, Lin Zhuangxuan lacks the coldness of a boss, so Wei Lijian directly regards Lin Zhuangxuan as someone else. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't understand and turned to look at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng said helplessly, "This is my high school classmate Wei Lijian. He was not convinced in high school, and now he always wants to be better than me." Wei Lijian raised his chin and said, "Su Weifeng, what you said is wrong. What do you mean I'm not convinced? I have always been better than you, okay? Do you think you are awesome just because you have found a few rich women? Is that your own ability? Rich women?" Su Weifeng was once again shocked by Wei Lijian's weird thinking. "Don't deny it, haha, I have seen you 3 times during this period, and you have changed 3 women around you. The first one went to buy a house with you, the second one drove a sports car to take you out to play, and this one took you to buy a car again. Your methods are really amazing. I'm definitely inferior to you in the ability to coax rich women." "What do you mean? I'm kept by a rich woman?" Su Weifeng's eyes were about to pop out. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed out loud. This was the first time someone looked at Su Weifeng like this. It was simply too funny. "What? You're still embarrassed to admit it? Haha." Wei Lijian laughed and said, Su Weifeng, I thought you were a big shot. Even if you weren't doing so well, you would never rely on women for a living. Who knew you would become a gigolo? I really despise you." Su Weifeng's face turned black and he said, "I do whatever I want to do. You don't have to nag me here." Wei Lijian curled his lips and said, "I'm doing this for your own good. You're a man with hands and feet. Can't you do anything? You have to be a gigolo? Can you still stand up straight?" Lin Zhuangxuan laughed again and said, yes. How can you be a gigolo? It's not manly." Su Weifeng glared and said, "Don't make trouble with me." Lin Zhuangxuan laughed even more happily and said, "Come on, please this girl, and I'll buy you a car to play with." Wei Lijian looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and said, "My dear girl, I have to remind you that this guy is very powerful. A few days ago, I saw a female boss buy him a house, and I also saw a woman driving a sports car and took him away. You'd better stay away from him and don't let him cheat you." Lin Zhuangxuan hugged Su Weifeng's arm and said with a smile, "I know he has other women, but I just like him. I like to give him money to spend. I buy him whatever he wants to buy." Wei Lijian was a little embarrassed. He had exposed Su Weifeng himself. Shouldn't this woman slap Su Weifeng in the face? Why is she still so happy? You are stubborn. A man spends your money and then goes to seduce other women. Do you think such a scumbag is worth having? Lin Zhuangxuan's smile became even brighter, and she said, "A man who is liked by many women shows that he is very attractive. If many women can spend money on him, it is even more attractive. He is cheating on several women at the same time. You are really at a loss." Wei Lijian's eyes widened. Lin Zhuangxuan said proudly, "At a loss? How can this be? He is my man. If he takes advantage of me, then it is equivalent to me taking advantage of him. I'm so happy." Wei Lijian was speechless and didn't know how to refute Lin Zhuangxuan for a while. Lin Zhuangxuan continued, "If you have such ability, you can also find several women to support you." Wei Lijian said angrily, "You are really a scumbag man and a scumbag woman." Lin Zhuangxuan frowned and said, "What an idiot. Su Weifeng shook his head and said helplessly, "Wei Lijun, you can do whatever you want. Do you find it interesting to stare at me all day?" Wei Lijun gritted his teeth and said, "Of course it's interesting. I'm exposing you. I can't let you have the opportunity to cheat other women and hurt other women." Su Weifeng said unhappily, "Can you find such a beautiful good-looking young rich woman? Even if you can find one, can she support you?" Wei Lijun was speechless. If a normal person saw a beauty like Lin Zuangsun, he would never consider supporting her, but this guy was so stubborn. The reason is actually very simple. If Su Weifeng is being kept by someone, he will have a sense of superiority. If this is the girlfriend Su Weifeng is looking for, then he cannot accept it. Gritting his teeth, Wei Lijun said, "HMPH, you said you are not being kept by someone, then fine. If you buy a car here today, then I will believe you." Su Weifeng said unhappily, "Do I need to prove it to you?" Wei Lijun suddenly became energetic and said, "Look, let me expose it directly. You can't even afford a car, so am I not being kept by someone?" Su Weifeng really annoyed Wei Lijun to death. If he was really that kind of villain, Su Weifeng would have taught him a lesson directly, but this guy was not bad either. He just ran in front of you to disgust you. It was not right to beat him or scold him. It was really a headache. Helplessly, Su Weifeng shook his head and said, "You are so annoying. I don't need to prove anything to you." Wei Lijun curled his lips and said, "Oh my god, stop pretending in front of me. Do you think I can't see it? If you really are not being kept by someone, then you should buy it now. Haha, let me expose you, okay? You are just a guy who relies on women for a living." No, saying that you are a gigolo is a compliment. I feel like you are just a gigolo now." Su Weifeng's face turned green all of a sudden, and Lin Zuangsun burst out laughing again. There are really not many situations that can make Su Weifeng so embarrassed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.